Welcome to the Independent Characters, episode 221. I almost said 121.
Oh, plus 100.
That was a long time ago. 221. Pinnacles of Plastic. 40K models.
40K models.
I had another piece of the title. We've been working on this title for a while. Thank you so much for joining us. With us, we have Jody, and as usual, Josh and myself. And the theme of the show this go around is really, occasionally you like to kind of do something where you're like, I don't want to expend a whole bunch of research and brain energy. And Josh and I were spitballing over ideas a while back, and we were like, let's do this episode where we just talk about what are our favorite models of 40K. Not as easy to do as you'd think.
Yeah. No.
And I mean, of course, it's all subjective, right?
Oh, yeah, totally.
And it's biased based on what we like, but we thought, hey, let's have a talk about what our favorite 40K models are. But it's as easy as picking what's your favorite movie.
Yeah, right, which I can't do. That's impossible.
Is it your favorite comedy? Is it your favorite drama? Are Lord of the Rings one? Can I consider those one movie?
Right, yeah.
So I've gone down that list. I actually have a spreadsheet, a Google spreadsheet that is all the movies I suggest, and I try to put them in an order. But I mean, it's like 50, 60 movies long. But whenever people are like, oh, what movie should I see? I'm like, well, let me look at my list.
And even there's a couple of years ago, there was a thing on Facebook where you invited me to like, what are your top 10 favorite movies? No explanation, just what are they? And like, even top 10 of
that's hard for you.
That was hard.
And so here we narrow it down to 4 categories.
Yep.
And we'll talk about those in a bit. But we got a couple of announcements before we get into the meat of the show. So why don't we talk about those? We've talked about what the show concept is. Want to announce that our Patreon is going to be reopening this coming week. There are 3 different tiers currently, a $2, $5, and $10 tier. In that Patreon, you'll see when we open up, I'll put a link in the show notes, but there'll also be one on the website, the Facebook page, and the Facebook group. And we're offering a lot of good content, I think, in the Patreon. We're offering some additional audio and some video content there.
Some video, get some outtakes.
Yep, we got some
good discounts to Herrick Games and
Table War.
Yep. Chipping in there, yeah.
A couple other things that are, I think, pretty cool. So, and you and I were discussing some like secret things that aren't on there, but that we will do for various.
Lots of bonus content coming that way.
Yeah. I mean, this was really a long time in the coming. Like we've been working on this for a while. The other thing we're about to do is do a re-up order of all of the classic IC t-shirts, the ones that say Hobby Progress Force Multiplier on the back. They're black. If you're watching the show, we're wearing them right now.
They're not black anymore.
Well, yours is the most.
Well, listen, when you...
I treated mine like a cherished possession.
Oh, I just gave you a new one.
That was Sky.
Oh, that was Sky.
Sky's is like, it's actually a brand new t-shirt.
I have several extras of 2XL size. So
mine is approaching gray.
Yeah. But you know what? Even when you paint black, you're not really painting black, right?
That's right. It's already highlighted.
So yeah, these are pre-highlighted.
Mine's got appreciate. So does Sky's.
Highlighted with age.
Yeah. And so great stuff there. And then we're working on some stuff with Table War Charities. I'm a member of the Table War Charities board, and I'll be reaching out to a few people to see if they want to help participate in some stuff for Table War Charities, which goes towards helping families of kids with autism and dealing with the education system and making sure they get the help and assistance they need.
Such a great cause.
It's an awesome charity. I can't tell you how many people at Adepticon, because we were doing a raffle for a Titan there.
Yeah.
How many people came up and they're like, oh, my niece, my nephew, my brother, me have autism, and boy, I could have used help, on this. So just cool cause. It's very close to Todd's heart because he has a child with autism. And I got to tell you, we hadn't seen them in a while. And then last year we went out to Hawaii and stayed with Todd and his family. Shell and I did. And I hadn't seen Tyler in forever. And Tyler was like super talkative, super communicative. And this was a kid that did not really engage with you. previously, and he left the room, and I turned to Todd. I go, "Who's that kid?
Yeah.
Who's that kid? It's
Transformation.
totally different.
That's
It's
great.
just-
Yeah.
when it's just a different way of learning.
Yep.
Right. So yeah, great stuff. Anyway, elite choice. Let's start with Jody, and then let's come back to Jody. How about that?
Sounds good.
That solves your 2-choice option.
I did. I got
in
stuck.
a show about making choices.
He couldn't do it. He couldn't do it for
just
one.
do one.
Like everything in this show, I'm going to go, but I had a good reason.
Yes. No.
But there's a reason. All right. So my first elite choice goes to Sean McCree. Sean painted up the Dreadnought from the Leviathan box set. And GW had published an article in the community site about the Ballistus featuring a picture of the banner-bearing old Dark Angels Dreadnought. He says, I think from 3rd edition. And he wanted to pay tribute to that model. High five, Sean. Success. Tribute has been paid. Beautiful paint job. Classic old school nod and look. Even went for the brighter kind of 90s green. It's just a beautifully...
It just needs the Goblin Green base rim. That's it.
Okay, agree to disagree. I think Sean's base is way better than the bright Goblin Green.
Agreed.
I agree with that, but to complete the look.
But if
To
you wanted to
complete
go
the look.
right-
It would
He didn't
also
go
have to
with
be
a
square.
base, but no. But at least.
But it is very, very cool. It was very similar.
That's a really cool concept, and he did an amazing job executing that. It's a beautiful homage to it, and just incredibly done from concept to execution. So yeah, hats off.
Yeah, killed it.
Yeah, nailed it. All right, how about you, Josh?
Yeah, I went with Nick Shepard, and he has a sweet Primorc conversion. And this is one of the Sons of Behemoth models that has been green stuff, kit bashed, etc., to make this giant-sized orc. So cool. I don't know lore-wise. Jody could probably answer this. Is there a Primorc thing in the lore? Is that I wasn't familiar with what it's supposed to represent, but it's just an incredible conversion with tusks and chains and crazy like mech-looking claws and just some really nice cabling details.
Labor of
in
love.
The back. Yeah, absolutely. Like, yeah, in game term wise, I have no idea what it does or represents, but it's just an incredible model. So
here's for me, like when I see this and I see like the green stuff work, I know Justin is pretty good at green stuff work. I have never been able to to me, it's a whole concept of
just
doing something in 3D. It's so hard for me. And it's like I used to say this to Doug. It's like making music, like a band. I get it. I cannot put those pieces together that I could participate in something like that. I couldn't even play a tambourine in a band.
You get the wooden block.
No.
Got a fever.
Well, listen,
for some more
cowbell.
You got mad at me, Josh, because I put up the show notes and then I had already picked my elite choice.
I mean,
but I chose Graham Nye's Khorne, Lord of Skulls. Wow. So
absolutely insane.
Not only is it a fantastic looking model, and he's done just a gorgeous job painting it, in the weathering on it and the rough look of it is just fantastic. It's also clearly a good photograph.
Yeah, but the paint job itself is like a photorealistic paint job.
Sick.
He did an incredible job putting this thing together.
And the details on the face and the head too are just awesome.
Yeah.
And this is, by the way, this is somebody who's not a fan of that model. Like, I actually do not like that model. That is one of the few models I have ever said, like, no, I do not like it. Okay, this looks cool.
I prefer the legged version.
Yeah, but this does look
still
really
incredible
cool.
all the same. Yeah, that's hands down the best version of that model I have ever seen.
I will agree with that.
Yeah,
there's some visual like color control. If your eye is really drawn to that cold white and blue, and it like mutes down the photos helping, but also it mutes down all those kind of earthy colors that are in the tracks in the plow. So you're not emphasizing the butt tanks.
They're not just popping out like that color. If I were to do that,
it's a good angle for it too.
Yeah.
But even from the side, you can see that there's not like an OSL effect out of the stacks in the back, which is so often done. And then you have just this brick of a model. So there's some very thoughtful kind of color placement and stuff going on there. Yeah. And the reds that are in the kind of right above the gut cannon, kind of tie everything to it. Yeah, it is just really well done on a model that's not an easy.
Yeah,
easy. And that's an interesting point because it took a model that I do not like, and I went, "Oh, I like that."
Oh yeah. No, that executed.
Like that's interesting.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
I like the color choice on it too, because it's very Heresy era World Eaters, which as a corn dozer, as it's affectionately known as, is really, really well done. Like good choice. Yeah.
Very nice.
Well,
really well done, man. Yeah. And then let's circle back to Jody
Mark II
for his second one.
Buzz the tower, as it were. Hey. John Barrymore. So there was a certain amount of this that I was like, I have to call this out because John posted right before we're going to record, which puts you in like the magical sweet spot of never getting an elite choice. So I was like doubly driven of like, no, I got to get an extra one in here. So John posted a picture of his Thunderhawk, the Emperor's Children 3rd Legion. He's calling it the Agony and the Ecstasy, of course.
Fitting, yeah.
And it is, he says it's a 30-year hobby goal for him and a year and a half effort of building, painting, and assembly and the whole thing. And wow, I mean, a year and a half is a long time.
The edge highlighting on this model.
Yeah.
That's a lot of edges, but really well done. Also.
Oh, so clean.
Yeah. So good.
Yeah, it's beautifully done. And, you know, I'm hesitant to say a year and a half well spent because that's a long time to look at one model. I'm sure other stuff was going on, but yeah, just a great final result. And you know, when you hit those giant milestones of like this model you've always wanted, or you know, that you've unlocked some new paint technique or some, any of those big milestones are totally noteworthy. So hats off to you, John. Not only great work, but doggone, that
thing is awesome.
Looks awesome, and they aren't small. Those Thunderhawks.
I have two.
Well,
that's a big bird.
I have two. One of which is fully painted. And this is actually the newer one with the new canopy and stuff. I have the two older ones.
What's the difference?
The canopy looks different. They reshaped the body a bit. It's not as squared. You can see that there's angles to the sides. The previous one was more, angular is not the word I'm looking for, but it's more like it's more blocky.
Yeah.
This one looks a little more aerodynamic. I think he's done a fantastic job on this thing. God, it's a great model.
Yeah, and that purple and white just popping with the gold, and you know, I know you're a fan.
Like Legio Zastobiax right there. Or
there you go. Emperor's Children.
Or Emperor's Children.
Emperor's Children too. I mean, they probably did first, but
who knows?
Whatever. Yeah,
who knows? Future history will tell.
It's all in the future past.
All right, so let's do this. We're going to take a short break. We'll come back, and then we're going to get into hobby progress and games played.
Sounds great.
Let's do it. All right, welcome back. We're going to leap right into the workbench.
Yeah.
Because Josh or
the section where I just talk for half an hour.
Yeah. Well, listen, I did a bunch of assembly this go around as opposed to painting.
Yeah.
Because I'm sick of looking at boxes on my shelves, so I started working through some of my backlog of assembly, and I knew I could at least accomplish that. So I assembled Bellicor, which is a model I bought a little while ago. I'm still not sure where I'm going to fit him into an army. You and I talked a little bit about that, Jody. I have for demons, I have purely Tzeentch stuff. Originally, my thought was to ally him into a Chaos Space Marine list, which is what I was going to do in the last edition. Not possible anymore, but still, as we'll talk about favorite models, he's up there.
Have you looked in the designer's commentary, just out of curiosity, about multiple models in a army needing to be the warlord if one defaults to the other?
Somebody on our Facebook group mentioned that if that's the case, you can choose which one is, which again, if I were to slap Abaddon in here with Bellicor, there would be so many points in two models.
Yeah, right.
That I don't know that that's really feasible at the level of games we're playing at the moment.
That's Chaos Wonder Twins, man. You got this.
Maybe in a 3,000
two special characters.
Yeah, two major special characters. Right. So speaking of Abaddon, I finally assembled him as well.
Nice.
He's been sitting there in a box. Originally, I was going to do like a specialized banner for him.
Yeah.
And I just said, look, I can't let what's the saying? Don't let perfect be the enemy of
great. Be the enemy of good.
There you go. So I was just like, you know what? Let's
perfect
get him assembled.
Done.
Let's get him on there. Let's get him done. So I've got him done, him based. I've got Bellicor done and based. Then I did Harkin World Claimer because I was working through a backlog of stuff. I'm like, let's knock this guy out.
Nice.
He's kind of a cool little model. I don't know if I'll really use him a lot. I have a ton of Raptors, so at some point I'll make a list, and I'll actually talk about that in a minute because I was building some lists and I want to talk about something else I had in mind. And then I assembled the Vex Machinator Archlord Discordant. I guess that's his name, Vex Machinator. He's the Archlord.
Lord Discordant is the unit type.
Yes. And this guy is real spindly. You're probably used to that working with Necrons so much. And as you're assembling him, he's sitting on the back of this creature, demon engine. And he has these leather straps which go from him to the demon engine as if reins. And boy, those broke fast. As I was going to dry fit him into the seating position, plink, it just snapped right off. And okay, so I glued that back on and fixed it, and then I went to go put him back in there, and plink, there goes the other one. And I was like, okay, this is ridiculous. I had this tiny 1.5 millimeter chain that I'd bought from Green Stuff World a while back. I said it'd be cooler if he was using chains as reins for this thing. This is the first time I've actually pulled him out and tried to use them. And it worked awesome.
Yeah, it looks really good with chains.
I'm super stoked with it. I'd originally bought it to like wrap around like fists on dreadnoughts and stuff. Yeah. And I'll still do that.
It's just jeweler chain?
Yeah. It's brass. Green Stuff World was selling it. I don't know if they still sell it, but I love it. I have 2 little packs of it.
Nice, yeah.
And so a lot of my stuff might get chains all of a sudden.
It's a good look, and it looks really good with chaos, like chains and spikes. It's hard to go wrong with.
Yeah, it looks frankly more at home on that model than the organic matter does.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
It does.
So it's a great model. Like it's an absolute. In fact, all of these models are really great. Bellicor was interesting in that the assembly of his base was not good. And I think I even posted, I said, I don't know if mine was in the heat for a while or if they're all like this, but like as I would assemble the pieces of the base, and there's like
that base has a lot of
6 or 8 pieces that connect the base together. You're building the entire thing. It's stupid to say it's a model, but you would assemble pieces and you'd be like, is this lining up right? And then finally you'd find the point where it lines up, but then you'd glue it together and you'd look and you go, I can still see light through this. And once you got it all together, it's hidden.
I'm going to channel the inner Justin here and say plastic glue.
Yeah,
it probably would have helped for that one.
It might have
helped fuse those gaps.
That would have helped with that particular piece. You're not incorrect there.
You ever messed with milliput?
Yeah. In fact, Justin gave me some when he bought like a huge amount of it, so I have a couple packs of it. And I did mess with it. I have a base built on milliput as well. So.
Okay. Well, just you were saying you don't like green stuff.
You can use that as a gap filler for sure.
Yeah, and it's way more forgiving than green stuff.
Yeah. That's a good point. So that's a good point. I do have some things I should use that on now that I'm.
It's still sticky and a mess, but it's so much easier to work with.
Yeah, so I mean, this is a guy too that as I was looking at how do I put him in a list, I was like, I don't really know that I'm going to put him in a list, but that got me list build thinking. And playing the games that we played, and I'll talk about those in a minute. I thought, I've got a bunch of these demon engines around. Like maybe I should see what a demon engine heavy chaos list would look like.
I think you'll like it.
I think it'd be fun to play.
Like it.
And it'd be very different to play than what I'm normally playing. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
So anyway, I've got a bunch of those, so maybe I'll throw something together and try
I'm excited to see what you come up with. That's the direction I've wanted to go with my Iron Warriors that was concept 1 was demon engines.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think it'd be pretty cool.
I think they're in a pretty sweet spot of the game right now too. That's
we'll talk
probably
going
to be strong and fun. Yeah.
So that was me, just a bunch of assembly and then basing and priming. So those are done. And for basing, the only reason I haven't based the Lord Discordant yet is so Dave Paints, several years ago when I went out to England, gave me a whole Forge World bag full of slate chips. And they're around here somewhere, and I have to track them down.
They're in your garage of opportunity.
Yeah, because I glue those to the base, and then I put sand and rock in there as well. So I have to find that. You cannot get that stuff here in California. If somebody knows where you can get it, let me know. I have not been able to find it anywhere, just like tiny slate chips. I know you can like go buy rock and break it up. I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah.
The only slate that I've seen is like landscape hardware supply stores, but they're selling sheets of slate, so you would have to break it
exactly.
Up, you're paying a premium for the sheet of it anyways.
Exactly. So I mean, maybe the rockery near here I can do it, but in England, it's everywhere. Like they use it for bedding and gardens and stuff. So
Yeah.
That seems like a prime model to leave separate from the base for painting purposes, though, just because
I think so.
Okay.
You got to get under them.
There's a lot of angles that would be real nice without a base in the way.
I agree. So, and since I'm not going to launch them anytime super soon, I got some time there. Okay. So anyways, Josh, let's move on to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had a pretty productive couple weeks
you
here.
did.
Good grief.
I've been working.
That's what I said when I saw his list. I'm like, God, Josh.
I've been working towards painting the Space Marine Combat Patrol that came in Leviathan box. So starting with that, I had the Inferno Squad built up last time. I was able to get them painted. Got decals on them. The one thing I haven't done yet for them is the bases, which will happen pretty soon here. So got the 5-man Inferno Squad painted. I still have 5 more that I need to assemble at some point, but there's only 5 in the Combat Patrol, so I figured I'd start there for people like Jody who want to play small games like that. And that 5-man squad is going to translate into
Combat Patrol.
a couple of other a couple other army builds that I have also will also have a 5 to 10 man squad in there. So setting the base level or building the base. One thing that we were talking about on Saturday is that for me when the new edition hit, I wasn't thinking new edition, new army,
right?
But the Primaris contingent of the Sharkadons really is a new army because I had 5 assault intercessors of Primaris painted and ready to go. So aside from a couple vehicles that I can pull in now that they're Primaris compatible, like a Land Raider or a Rhino or something like that, like it really is a new army for the new edition.
Effectively.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's been actually a pretty big motivation for me to get stuff painted. I've only played one game against Jody with the Marine so far, but it was pretty fun play style and going to be very different from how the Necrons are. So,
you think?
But it's a really different play style.
Yeah.
Well, that Inferno Squad's is such a good fit for the Carcharodons that like
get up close.
Yeah, it seems like
aggressive, but
that seems like a great fit for them.
So eventually there'll be 10 of those guys, but we got 5 painted, ready to go, decals and everything. 5 more assault intercessors. I actually painted 6 because I wanted to have the option to run this as one giant 10-man squad if I'm like coming out of a Land Raider or something like that, or break it up into 2 5-man squads. So I painted a 5 guys and a sergeant, so I have the option of running it as 1 or 2 squads with the existing 5-man assault intercessor squad that I have. So got those guys fully painted and ready to go. Painted the Terminator captain from the Leviathan box. So he's ready to go. The only thing I haven't done with him yet are decals. So those will happen in the next couple of days. And I also painted the Primaris Apothecary, who is going to be my HQ for boarding action games.
That is a great model too.
It's a gorgeous model. Yeah. Really cool model. I just love the way he's like holding the gene seed or the progenoid in there and going to do a bunch of blood effects. Like he's just ripped it out of some fallen Marine's chest and ready to implant the next hopeful.
Yep. Stick that in my pocket for later.
Yeah, exactly. Which it's cool. I was at first glance, I thought he had a bunch of grenades on his chest, but I realized that he's actually it's all the little gene seed canisters, and each one has its own purity seal attached to it.
Yeah.
It's like, it's just a really cool little detail. He's holding this cord in his right hand that's holding an open container. So it's like he's about to drop the freshly harvested gene seed into this little container, add a purity seal to it, and sling it around his neck. So
nice.
It's neat. Cool model. And like I said, I'm going to use that as one of my HQ units for boarding action specifically, but also he'll get play in larger games unless there. I assembled 5 Stern Guard. These are the 5 Stern Guard from the Leviathan box again. And they are just going to be one of the only shooty units that I'm actually going to have for Marines in the Sharkadons, just because I really like playing them as an assault army, even if it's not as viable competitively.
Yeah.
It's so fun and thematic. It's a fun way to play Marines. So going all in on that one. I also assembled the Ballistus Dreadnought, which is again from Leviathan. That's the shooty Dreadnought. So it'll be one of my other shooting components.
I still have all the bases for that stuff for you, right? So you need those bases?
I don't need the bases.
All right, good.
As we'll get to in my next point here, I've been resin printing all the bases for this army.
Got it.
So my existing Sharkadon army in all the small Marine scale they're actually need to rebase the whole army because they're 25 millimeter bases still, which is a big part of why I haven't played it, but it's also part of the motivation of going everything Primaris. But they're on like a slate kind of stone look, which is I painted gray so the blood effects would really pop, but it's a gray army on a gray base with then a lot of blood.
Yeah.
So it's like it's really the red that's doing the work on the bases, and there's a lot of gray on that. So this one instead, I'm doing a more of a Space Hulk kind of void style base, so it'll be more metallics and lots of rust, so kind of like warm brown orange tones coming out of that rusty effects, and then blood on top.
Where did you find the bases for printing?
I found the files online on Colt 3D.
Okay.
So then I've been just slowly printing the bases out for an army's worth. So
Pre-supported, or did you do the sports?
I did the sports for them.
Yeah, so getting support
For those
right.
who aren't aware, that's 3D printing.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Language.
Yeah, 3D printing. You don't just print the thing on the build plate. There's a flat plate that dips in and out, and you need something to support the model. You can do it with bases. It's a terrible idea. Don't do it. Unless you have a magnetic plate. Do you have a magnetic plate?
Don't.
I have one, and I didn't want to bother putting it on, so I just do supports. But supporting bases is like, it's a little bit tricky. You would think for like a pretty simple object, it's
Because
easy.
it's so flat, right?
Because it's so flat, you get warping. And
I did two 90 millimeter bases for dreadnoughts, and it was the longest print I've done to date by far because it is such a large base. So I needed about a 30 to 45 degree angle. I don't remember exactly what, and then the raft, and then all the supports in there. Like it was, it took a good while, but they turned out really well.
Yeah, as long as you just, for those who like 3D printing, if you're going to print bases, 10 times more supports than you think you need.
Yeah, right. All the supports you can get in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so base has been coming along. The few models that I do have painted, including these, like everything's going to get a base, so I'm going to just do a big batch of bases probably before we record our next episode, I'll have a pretty decently sized force going. Not quite the combat patrol because I have a lot of peripheral stuff that's outside of that, but it's all coming together.
Nice.
So I when I did some list building, I started with like, here's the combat patrol, here's a 500 point boarding action list, here's a 1,000 point list, here's a 1,500 point list, and here's a 2,000 point list. And I'm going to try and get as many models that overlap between those four different lists that I just listed there. That models can share between them. So I can prioritize a small number of models to kind of get me the most options of gameplay at once. And then I'll just expand for whatever sounds fun after that. Right. So that's it for sharks. But then I also rebased my wraiths because I rebased all my Necrons several years ago because the original, again, like warriors were on 25 millimeter bases, 28 millimeter bases, and then they got bumped up to 32s. Same thing, Immortals, everything in that entire army got bumped up in bases. So I've rebased the majority of that army, but since I didn't play much ninth with it, especially Necrons, only like very early on, I played a handful of games. But the Wraiths were on 40 millimeter bases and the old basing style, because when I rebased, I actually changed the style to a new style that I like a lot more. Just more texture, a little bit of patch of the greenery stuff in there. So finally got around to doing that because Wraiths bumped up to a 50 millimeter base, which I actually didn't have any of. So I had to find some of those online to do the bases for. I finished painting the Plasmancer, which is just one of the fun cryptics on there, less crazy powerful compared to the Chronomancer or the Technomancer. But I just had a list the list that I ended up playing with you, which we'll talk about. But Plasmancer was just a fun little addition to that, which I had like 85% painted there. So it was easy to get over the finish line and paint his base up. And then I magnetized all my bases for the few Necrons that didn't have magnets in them, including the Wraiths, just because I use table war cases for local games. So just having that metal sheet and a magnet underneath for easy transportation is super handy.
So nice.
So speaking of our resin putties, I have a 2-part resin putty that you just mix together and stick a magnet in there, and it's nice. Good to go. So did a bunch of that. And then lastly, I primed some craters because I've still been working on terrain for getting my 40K collections for a couple tables at a time going.
We were talking about terrain because we went up and played at Herrick Games, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But there was a time where every garage sale I went to, or flea market that Game Castle had, I went in with like, gotta find terrain. Now I'm like, I do not need more terrain. I have plenty of terrain. boy, I have a lot of terrain. I have unassembled terrain at this point.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, Steve and I so Steve came over, and when we were talking about his Adeptus Custodes, I had fallen victim to the show force we did about Adeptus Custodes. And I was like, I'm going to do an Adeptus Custodes army. And I love them. Like, I think they're a gorgeous army. Colin Ward had just the most awesome Adeptus Custodes army.
Those dreadnoughts. Oh, man. I didn't include those. I think they're Forge World. But.
Okay. Well, anyway, yeah, you can't do that. Yeah. So anyway, I had these sitting on my shelf forever. And I just thought, I'm never going to get to them. But Steve is doing Adeptus Custodes. And I was like, you know what? Take these. Take all this. In fact, here's these 2 vehicles. Take the vehicles. They're like, at first I was like, oh, hold on. And I'm like, just take it. I'm so never going to get to it. Take it. You're going to enjoy it. And then Steve brought over the boarding action terrain box, the big one. And he's like, oh, here, I brought this for you. And I'm like, oh God. Like, I'm super stoked about it because
really cool set.
I love this stuff.
But it is a crazy amount of
say large box
work too.
So plastic glue, you say?
Yeah.
Plastic glue is actually exactly what I would use on terrain. But
and that one, if you have the orange Tamiya plastic glue with the big thick wand on it, that's what I use for that set.
That's what I want.
Like, if you're using the green fine one, you're gonna hate your life. You're gonna hate your life. Yeah.
All right.
Use the big wand.
All right. Cool. All right. Anyway, didn't mean to interrupt. Joe,
anything else?
Yeah, I'm sure I'm forgetting about a couple of things, but no, I think that's enough for today. I'm gonna save it for next time.
It's been a popular guy.
Wow. Yeah. I felt good about my. I was like, I did some stuff. All right. What did I do? Top of my list, though. Speaking of getting,
I will say, I'm going to interrupt you, but I will say, doing the show again at least is forcing me to do stuff because I'm like, oh, I got to get something done. I'm going to assemble all this stuff. At least I'm getting things done.
Jeff's already had his reign.
Yeah. Yeah. That's long gone.
Yep. So speaking of moving things on, it happened. That was the orcs. I am no longer an orc player.
Yeah.
That is, I own.
God, they were beautiful.
None.
Too.
Yeah. And was thrilled that I believe that the handle on the IC's Discord is Devious. So one of the folks there reached out after I was on last time and said, hey, I'm interested. Finally set aside some time in my waning days of summer vacation and packaged them all up. It was 2 pretty big boxes worth.
I'll bet.
A lot of plastic wrap used or cling film. That's what I use.
Yeah.
Got them all boxed up and they are gone.
Enjoy unpacking that.
I was thrilled to see very little damage because I mean orcs.
He sent you pictures of the stuff that arrived. Oh, good.
Yeah. And orcs, especially on some of the larger kits, there's some spindly bits.
Yeah.
And the vast majority of it made it unscathed and undamaged, and
the rest is fixable.
Yeah.
You just have to believe it'll work and get there, and it will.
Yeah, and also if you're sending the orcs, just spray the box red. It's fine. It was kind of fun going back through that as I was decanting the collection. And then knowing I was packing it up for the last time was strangely wonderful.
I was going to ask any regrets.
I'll get back to that.
Okay.
Later on, we're going to talk about that.
Okay.
Not much. Okay. Very little.
You felt a lift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I sold those Ultramarines to Austin, AJ. And occasionally I kind of miss them, but like not enough for it to be like, oh, I wish I hadn't sold them.
Well, you still have the Thunderhawk.
I know I got to, again, I was going to repaint that as a,
for
Black Legions,
Minotaurs.
Yeah.
At some point, but I'm just not doing Marines for the foreseeable future. I do have a Thunderhawk for Chaos. I don't even know if I can use it anymore.
I'll tell you what, the release pending for the new Epic game coming out. What's it called?
Legions Imperialis.
Got it.
Carl, hit the button.
Head you off.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I still couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
You ask me in 3 minutes, I won't be able to tell you.
Nor I. It's called Epic. But the new Epic scale game, I'm very excited about. Actually diminished my anxiety of what if I want to play a really big game. And that's twofold. My demon army is actually a lot bigger than it seems.
Yeah.
Because I have a demon army standalone for each god.
Yeah.
Well, when you put 3 of the 4 I have done together, it's actually a pretty big freaking army.
And then Bellicor can lead this.
And then Bellicor absolutely can lead them. Looking forward to messing with that. Anyway, so let's get to, so that it's gone. And it was a big lift. It was a weight off of just the backlog of knowing I have this massive army that I'm not interested in messing with anymore. And the guy who got it seemed very excited about it, and was a fan of the show.
That helps a lot. Curb it a lot. Right?
Definitely.
I've sold two armies, my World Eaters and my Ultramarines, and I haven't regretted selling them.
No.
And I've turned around and usually used it to do something else.
Yeah.
Right?
And I've been stoked. I've sold a number of armies. I don't know how many before this, but nothing this big. I mean, an apocalypse size 40K army is not usually something you do. All right. So what did I actually do though that was moving forward? Built and primed and needed to do some pretty significant putty work on him. A little great unclean one, maybe a Demon Prince. It's from Mierce Miniatures, the Divine Lord of Legions and Buboes. So it's a short, great unclean one. So it was a model I've had rattling around in my collection. There was a closeout on some of the bigger Mierce Miniature kits at Game Castle and picked it up years ago. It'll be my test model for, I'm 90% sure what my Nurgle Demon paint scheme is going to look like.
Yeah.
So I need to do a test model, and I thought there's a great option.
It's just a little pile of pus.
That sound effect's all I got for you. So I started my first of 2 #90s Marine Challenge models.
Nice.
Explain
Very
what this
excited.
is. Yeah.
So Darren Latham hit, I believe, 90,000 followers on Instagram to Face to Snap to Chat to his social media account. And he put out a call for people to #90s Marine Challenge. It's from August 2nd to September 2nd, I believe, is the window. And he's looking for people to get specifically the 2nd edition 90s Space Marine push fit bolter in the front, push fit backpack on, and that's it. One piece
it was
flat
that
plane.
specific one.
Yeah.
Oh, I do not have that one.
Well, I was like, what a neat idea. What would I do? Just thought. And then Mike DeBoer, who's one of our local Santa Cruz guys, he is the moderator and kind of overseer of the Old Hammer page on Facebook, or one of the Old Hammer pages on Facebook, a few of them. He reached out and he had one still on frame.
Wow.
Yeah.
And was like, hey, I'd love to see what you do with this if you want it. And I was like, absolutely. Unfortunately, I couldn't narrow down to just one idea, so I put out the call in our local chat, and Dawn sent me one that I just got today. So I have 2.
Nice.
So the first one is well on its way, and then the second one is painted up
your
here.
elite choice. Like, you just can't sell on one.
Gotta have 2.
Yeah, there it is. So yeah, very excited to get those done. Man, model technology, it's come a long way.
Yeah.
They are
And then some
soft details.
Yeah. Where your painting defines the details.
Yes.
Because detail does not
Soft,
exist.
flat.
Even from when I was first in it, the Battle for McCrag starter set, like those Marines, wholly different than what you get today. I mean, just the level of detail.
It's so funny because I remember 3rd edition dropping and all of us having our minds just blown by the level of detail on those Marines. And so to go all the way back to the 2nd Ed Marine is, it's pretty cool.
And speaking of progress, I mean, Leviathan, and this is something that I was talking to some of my Games Workshop friends about, is the most complicated box set, starter set for 40K that they have done so far.
In what regard?
In regard to the amount of sprues and variation of those sprues. Like normally when you talk about that, like they would use and I could be misquoting here, but they would use 2 or 3 machines to spin up the variety of things. They needed something like 8 machines to spin up the variety of stuff that you got out of that, because it's so many sprues.
Yeah.
And so much variety.
It's a lot of molds
of models. It's that many different molds.
So I'm going back to that 90s box in comparison. I believe, lest I'm mistaken, there are 6 different models in the entire box.
Yeah.
There's Orcs and Gretchen. There's Bolter Marines. There's a Sergeant. There's a Flamer, and there's a missile launcher.
Yeah.
And that was the whole. And was there a missile launcher in the squad?
I was trying to remember where the Beaky Marines, because
that was RTB01 before that.
Yeah, okay.
Anyway, sorry, getting nostalgic here, but that's what this whole thing's about.
It's
and it's
interesting
super fun
to see
Yeah.
Your point about the progress that the models have made. I mean, I remember seeing after Battle for McCrag, it was then Blackreach, that set. Like the orcs in that set looked amazing. And the Marines were a vast improvement as well. So like every iteration is just incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, looking at
Second to third was a huge jump, as you mentioned.
yeah, well, and looking at the new orcs versus the Blackreach orcs, of which there were none of the new orcs in my army I sent off. I haven't actually seen those in hand, and I'd be really curious to, because I was looking at the Blackreach orcs in that era. It's like, man, these are good looking models.
Yes, I thought they were fantastic.
I'd be curious to see the new ones. All right, but maybe the most significant piece of my hobby progress.
Absolutely.
Josh was excited about this.
Yeah, as well he should be. So with the departure of the orcs, that kind of cleared some of that backlog. Brian reached out and offered to come and do a Matt Foley motivational speaker day with me to get my freaking Titans painted.
Stood in front of our green screen here and said, just do it.
I could show you on my phone a couple of those that he sent me since. Brian and I usually during the summer, just because we both usually have teacher summer off together, would try and get breakfast a couple times and then do some kind of hobby something. So right kind of at the very end of summer, we managed to sneak in a breakfast. Then he came over, he did some painting. You guys saw the results of that. And then I got my first Reaver done.
There so excited about this.
Yeah. Not done. Okay, not done.
But paint laid, assembled,
yeah.
blah, blah, blah.
Got to figure out the decal situation. Basing's done in my head. It's just needs to be done, but then decals and weathering have to get done before basing can get done. And so there's a layered progress, but this first hurdle got done. Holy cow. You were right. You were right.
I know.
He's looking at Josh. Saying
yeah. For those listening in, I'm looking at Josh. Josh told me just focus on one Titan at a time. And so I took that advice and was like, I'm just going to do the Reaver. That's my favorite Titan. I'm just going to do the Reaver.
I'm with you, by the way. Reaver's my favorite.
That's my favorite. Yeah.
Man, does that kit talk about an advancement? Brian was telling me that kit originally was intended as a Forge World kit and then ended up being plastic. And boy, can you tell.
Yeah.
The lack of posability to it feels like a resin model.
Well, this is interestingly because the Forge World version of the Reaver is not a CAD designed model. It is hand sculpted greens. So this is one of the only ones they actually had to recreate a CAD to do the model of, because they didn't just have a CAD file they could rescale and adjust the detailing. So
that's interesting.
And yet it goes together beautifully. It really does go together well. It's just stiff.
Yeah. As soon as you put together a Nemesis Warbringer, which is very similar to a Reaver, you'll be like, I see where they learned these lessons from the Reaver kit.
Got it.
And it's still a great kit. But
yeah, the feet and the legs are, you're going to have to commit to getting it looking a little more mobile, but future ones, we'll sort that out. So I'm underway, and even taking the focus on one Titan at a time. And Brian was just work on the legs, set everything else aside, just work on the legs. And I got that done. And then I got just worked on the torso and then just the arms. And it really was one day. And I was knocked the whole thing out, and it wasn't that bad. So yeah, awesome, very excited to revisit.
It's awesome looking. Are you thinking, as I look at this, Josh and I recently have been talking a lot about oil washing, because I have some of Doug's stuff that he oil washed, and I want to see if I can replicate some of that. And Josh is going to help me learn how to do oil washing. I've never done it before, but to me, this looks like a model that I'm like, oh man, that could really benefit.
Oh yeah, I oil washed all my Titans, and it worked real well.
Yeah. I'd like to co-op that day. I've been bugging him for a while about it. I've tried water-based oils and everything. Once I tried it, I was like, this is not great.
That's good. Yeah.
And a bunch of people I then kind of followed up, and they're like, yeah, here's what you should expect. I'm like, yep, that's what's happened.
Yeah, we're going to do it down here and probably film a little bit of it. Just
cool.
So
I would love to jump in on that.
Oh, the other thing I forgot to mention, finish the Titan and I'll jump in. Sorry.
No, that's it. He's
thing looks
ready
awesome.
So
we're excited for you to play. Yeah. High five. Nice.
Well, the comedy is, so legitimately, we did that AT episode.
Yeah.
Way back when.
Yeah.
And I was like, I already bought my stuff just in building up to it. And it's been sitting ever since. And just this weird, there's been a real layer of hobby mental block. And
you've also been real heavily involved in RPG stuff lately, and which is taking probably a lot of that focus and a lot of that desire to, well, why am I going to do this? I'm focused on this area.
So with this,
it's not like you're not painting. You're painting.
No, I always paint
tons of
everything.
RPG models. You know,
board game figures.
I will say with this, there was a realization. It's funny you said board game figures. Literally, the oil watch was for a board game that needs tons of models. And I was like, let's try it. The realization was this is basically what I did that was intuitive for tons of projects was exactly the wrong thing to do. Like I basically created a situation where until I was done, I was not going to get any sense of like joy or progress.
Interesting.
I tried to assembly line all the Titans at once. Bad call. I tried to do all the armor plating and paint all the armor plating at once. Bad call. No. Like there is enough unique little fiddly aspects to these guys that like you want to really focus on one Titan at a time, which is befitting for the way the game works. And then like Brian's saying,
scale and the detail too. It's like each Titan is a Dreadnought equivalent. Like it is a joy to paint. Like there's just, it's fun detail. So if you're not painting 5 or 6 at a time, like you can actually appreciate what the model has to offer. And then you can like get creatively inspired. My first batch, I made the mistake and I painted 6 Titans, and that was a mistake. Like they turned out great, but it was a grind. And there was a good while that I was like, I was not very motivated to paint more Titans. But then have done 1 to maybe 2 at a time since then, and it's just made a world of difference.
Yeah. So I'd like nerfed my own joy pretty intensely.
Oh, that's
so but
you've recaptured it
both.
Like.
So I am very excited. Like the Warhounds, one of the Warhounds is the entire reason I'm doing Legio Adoris. So I'm very excited to get out the old masking tape. Tried out some new Tamiya bending tape. Frisket's like the industrial version, and man, did it work well. Like you can pull a curve with your masking tape.
I have to pick some of that up.
Neat. I normally especially would give Don a hard time about purchases count as progress.
You give me a hard time.
I give everybody about a hard time as purchases because I do paint all the time. I had a couple like major purchases though that are I want to share, so I'm gonna, and then I'll shut it and we can move on to the real show. Or no, we got to talk about games played.
This is the real show. I don't know what you're talking
this is
about.
The meat right
I forgot where I was for a second. That's right. This is the show. It's an hour of hobby progress and 15. No, it's not that either. All right. I picked up 2 expansion packs for my Pro Acryl paints. I have almost completely switched to Pro Acryls.
I saw those up at Herrick Games. Like he's got the new packs.
Yeah, the new Ben Comets one is great. The Deep Sea, it's called like Deep Sea Ben or something, which is hilarious.
Unfortunate. I was hoping the Ben Comets one I'd get it and it would make me paint like Ben Comets. It does not.
With time and practice.
Yeah, a whole lot of time and practice.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, a couple years ago, we went to Adepticon. That model that he had entered with the Sanguinius versus, I don't remember what the demon is at Sanguinius fight.
Oh, yeah, that was incredible.
Have either of you ever tried his like patented loaded brush technique?
No.
It's really not. It's not a beginner technique, but it's not that hard. And the Pro Acryl paints make it pretty easy.
Oh, interesting.
And he said in his little blurb, he just did a posting where he went through each color and said, here's what I wanted. And one of them, he specifically says like this color was formulated to be really well used with that technique. So that was part of it. And then Ninjon, I just really like Ninjon's colors for his set he put out. So picked up those 2.
Ben is also just the nicest guy. It was the first time I had met him, and he was just so friendly and so outgoing.
That is the only thing I've ever heard of him.
Yeah.
And had a couple very brief just fanboy interactions with him, and unbelievably kind and welcoming. Yeah, Ben Comets is an asset to the community.
Agreed.
Picked up the Dark Apostle because for building my combat patrol, I have a start on an Iron Warriors kill team that I did back in the day, and then the Dark Vengeance box got added in, and I was like, well, I really kind of just need a Dark Apostle, and I have the Havocs already. And then funny enough, I was looking at the Dark Apostle, and for Iron Warriors, like immediately saw the conversion in my head. I just need to source the bits. So he's got those flames off his backpack, turning those into like smokestack shooting flame. Get rid of he needs actually, you said you have a lot of Raptors.
Mm-hmm.
I might want to see if you got a spare Raptor head to part with.
I'm sure I
have a idea for that. Anyway, so pick that up. The big one though that I picked up that is why I was like, I'm going to talk about purchases is today in the mail, literally right before I was heading this way, Space Hulk first edition Gene Sealer box set. This is the first expansion to first edition. This was the only first edition. I had the rule book and the tiles, but I didn't have the like additional hybrid Gene Stealer blips from that edition or some of the psychic power stuff. And I found one online that was the box, which I didn't have, and all the cards that I didn't have,
Oh,
and got it at like a totally reasonable price for
great.
an incomplete set.
Yeah.
But it completed my set.
Right.
Completed
So-
your incomplete set.
Yeah, so I now have all of first edition
The
Space
words
Hulk.
of Jerry Maguire, you complete me.
That's right. It did. Those little blips completed me.
Nice.
But
That's
I've played some Space Hulk. We did I'll talk about it in a minute, but for games played, I got to play some Space Hulk. And every time I've played, I've been like, man, I wish I had those expansion blips so we could include like they do for the Basement of Death guys, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like they always have the other flavors of Gene Stealers in there. And I was like, man, I want those. Oh, I also built the Gene Stealer Cult box set
Nice.
from, I don't know what they're from, the push fit ones. I don't remember what those are from
I
now.
don't know what those are from. Yeah.
But there was a push fit set and those got built
Cool.
for this. But yeah, I was just like
Nice.
super stoked to get that that collectible old schooly box in. So anyway, that's my progress.
The only thing I bought was the small rule book.
He was out
from Herrick.
That's true.
Would have added that too.
Oh man, I'm telling you.
And I bought all the new Necromunda stuff that
I'm
came
so
out.
glad.
Yeah, you did.
I'm so annoyed about the Necromunda stuff. But that small book, man, much nicer than looking around
That
the
is
Leviathan.
so
thing.
much more portable.
Yeah, especially we're just playing with the mission cards, so now it's just so
You
much
know
more
what's
portable.
also portable?
Yeah, I know. For some reason, I like a physical book.
I do too.
Although I will say the
Core rules are
organization
pretty
of
much
that-
all in here anyway, so I'm like, I don't really need to bring a rule book anymore.
I've kind of-
since I'm
I'm-
going with cards.
I'm getting there.
Yeah.
You're smarter than I am.
I finally cracked the rule book. Like I was not cracking the rule book and I was like, I'll just ask these guys. Like I can see my data cards, but I'm not going to, here's a summary I've played before, go. That's why I'm always like, hey, in this interaction, close combat, how exactly does,
Right, yeah.
So after our last games, as we're getting there, I was like, okay, I understand enough now to read.
The other thing I'll tell you is that I'm with you. I much better going through it and then reading, but that Leviathan book already starts falling apart. Like that thing is
I'm so bummed to hear that.
It's not the most durable book out there. No.
I haven't had
It's
issues
unfortunate.
yet, but
It's unfortunate. Okay, games played. Where do we want to start? How would I start?
go for it. Yeah.
Okay,
Well, two
'cause
of ours are the same.
A
So.
lot of this is Josh and I are going to share some of this. So we had a Titanicus day here at the house.
Yeah, we did.
That Austin kind of set up, which was great. We hadn't seen Austin Lynn in forever.
Hadn't played a game in a couple years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's the most I've seen him is when I drop off my Titanicus stuff to be painted. And Austin loves painting Titanicus stuff and made me a very reasonable offer to paint some of my stuff. And so, all of my forces pretty much he's painted up except for my knights. So he wanted to play and I wasn't going to turn that down. Since I'm not working anymore, we had time I think we played on a Thursday or Tuesday. Or Thursday.
I was so happy.
Flexibility.
I gave you guys a hard time, but I was so happy.
It was awesome.
Brian got one day
Brian
of
got
actual
a game.
teacher summer to come and play a game in the middle of the week.
And it was a great game. It was a great game.
Super
We broke a few rules to play it, which was fine. I think
we allowed
Austin's
Austin
list-
an illegal list because he really wanted to bring his War Master, which he had not fielded yet.
and I think we each were going to bring 1250 or something
Yeah,
like that. Talk a little bit about the game, Josh.
Yeah, so it was 1250 points per player team game. So Carl and I were on one side. They dared to call out
Did
the
they?
Adepticon champions.
Like you said that. Were they serious? Like we're gonna, what were they thinking?
I don't know.
What were they thinking?
They weren't thinking, Carl.
Josh forgot his medal.
I did forget my medal. I intended to wear it.
If you had worn that, I'd have worn my Warhammer Hero medal.
I absolutely had intended to bring it, but I forgot. So it was super fun game. Brian was playing a Lupercal Legio, so that's five Warhounds. So he had 4 Warhounds and a Dire Wolf because it's a crutch for Brian. He can't get away from it.
I had 3 Warhounds and Reaver.
Yeah, and Warlord. Was your Maniple? You were doing the
Oh no, I didn't have a Reaver. Three Warhounds and the
Warlord.
The Warlord.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then I had I took a Corsair Maniple, which was 3 Reavers, and then a small banner of Lancers.
Those Lancers did work.
Those Lancers did work to the War Master of all things too, which that armor.
In fact, I'm
is
going to
so high,
assemble
I think.
my Lancers next.
Yeah.
That's on my what's coming up.
My advice to Titanicus players is save the Questoris Knights for new Epic.
Yeah.
Because I think that
What's it
is
called
honestly
again?
Legions Imperialis.
Legions Imperial.
New Epic.
I told you.
It's called New Epic.
Yeah,
I think
what it's called.
Questoris Knights are going to be fun and fitting in New Epic.
Good.
But Titanicus, I think it's really Lancers are the place to be, the Cerastus platform.
All right.
Just fast, fun. Super fun game. Yeah.
We laughed.
Lots of shenanigans, lots of high fives,
Lots
lots
of,
of smack talk.
Yeah, lots of smack talk that was all good natured.
Very good
Like
natured,
the running joke was calling people out for their illegal list. So we've already won this game.
Yep.
And then we could
we used the match play rule set, which we did a random deployment zone and a random primary mission, which the primary mission was actually illegal to the deployment type that we rolled up.
So
we
for
already
example,
won that game.
it would say you have to place the objective marker 12 inches from the edge of the table and in your deployment zone, except there was no way to move it 12 inches.
The deployment zone was only 10 inches wide.
Yeah, so it's just like, so we're like, oh, we'll move in there. Well, because you guys are cheating, we've already won, Right. It was just constant. We could get this.
A lot of little banter.
So we've won 2 out. Should we just do 2 out of 3? Oh, wait, we've won that. Let's do 3 out of 5. But it was all in good nature, and like we laughed a lot.
A couple amazing explosions. We had multiple adding to the catastrophic damage table. So it's a scale of 1 to 10, and we got multiple 11s. So we're like lots of this one goes to 11 jokes.
Yep.
But also just huge explosions that we had some beautiful chain reaction.
The
War Master went off, and that was like a 13-inch explosion of just ignoring void shields, everything taking D6 hits. Like
big.
Yeah, it was.
And it was funny because he wanted to put it on the table so bad. Austin wanted to put it on the table. I go, is this the first time it's painted? Is this the first time you put it on the table? I go, it's dead. Like,
yeah, remember what you said, and I felt bad afterwards, but in the moment I was like, I can't not do this. You're like, how long did it take to paint? And I was like, not as long as it's going to take us to kill it. Which was absolutely true.
It was so funny. But we had a great time. It was so good to see Austin and Brian.
Yeah, super fun game.
Yeah, it was probably the most fun Titanicus game I've had.
Someday, Jody will join the party.
Yeah.
Right when they discontinue it.
Yeah.
Better hurry.
Oh, I'm still going to play it.
If I paint it, playing it.
Yeah.
There you go. All right. So we played that. That was a great day. I think we played over a course of 3 hours or something like that.
It was a pretty short game.
Yeah, the game went pretty quick, but the goofing off went on for a while. Then we went up to Herrick Games Saturday. Herrick Sky had a game day that he just kind of opened the game store just to friends, and so we went up there. It's a bit of a drive for me, especially when on the way back. I don't know if I told you on the way back. This is a windy road through all the mountains to get up to where he is from where I am. For those who aren't familiar with the area, and the main route that I usually take there, which is a great drive by the way in a convertible, is fantastic, but it was closed down due to some construction thing at the time. So I take this other Bear Creek Road up there, and on the way home,
right now too.
It's 13 miles of just totally windy, slow road. On the way home, I got about to mile 12, and there's a police officer there making everybody get off and go back because a box truck had overturned on the way down. So it took me about 2 hours to get home, but it was worth it because got 2 games of 40K in 1,000-point games. First, I played against Craig and his Sisters of Battle. I was playing Thousand Suns. Craig's Sisters of Battle are so good looking.
Gorgeous.
Beautiful army.
Super nice guy.
I kept looking at him going, I got all these Sisters of Battle. And, I'm going to focus on Black Legion. Stay focused. His army is so well painted, and he's painted the things he likes. After the game, we talked about what did you need? Because he didn't have anything that was like hard punching units that he needed to like destroy heavy vehicles. Or in my case, the what's
Vortex
the beast called? The Vortex Mutalith.
The Mutalith.
Vortex Beast.
Warp Beast.
That thing is really good. Really good. Like it has an aura around it. It has 3 different types of firing it can do. It's not a joke in close combat.
It's not broken. It's really well balanced. I think it's fun and thematic.
Super fun to play, and it can explode when it dies. And that thing just ate through his army one after another in concert with the Demon Prince and then just my Thousand Suns guys. One squad never got out of their Rhino. But Craig is super fun to play with. And that was the first game I think I've played with Craig. But I've always admired his sisters. And so we had a conversation afterwards about, well, what can you add to this? And so there's a few, like some of the battle suits he's going to add, but also the church organ
Yeah.
missile
Exorcist.
firing.
Yeah,
I love that thing. But I was really afraid of the flamethrower vehicles that he had there.
That thing puts out a lot of shots.
It does put out a lot of shots, but I mean, I also, and this is the other thing I was trying to tell him was, don't feel like that thing is ineffective against the Mutilated Vortex Beast. I made really good rolls that kept it alive. And so in the process of that, you can sometimes get, you can ascribe to a unit more power than it has. And the example I use with that is Aaron playing his Necrons and the Immortals. The first time I played against those, everything I took down came back, and I could not destroy a single. And I was like, these things are really aptly named as Immortals. The next time I played against them, just wiped them right off the table.
dead. Yeah.
But for the longest time, I was like, oh, I'm really afraid of this unit. It's so powerful. No, I just rolled. Aaron rolled really well, and I didn't roll so good.
Is the Mutalith rocking an armor save and an invul save?
Yep.
and
Yeah.
feel no pain.
And feel no pain.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great combo. What's the invul?
4+, 5+ maybe?
5.
4. I'd have to go back and look. I think it's 5.
As the demon player, like that whole, like, if I'm rolling invul saves well, it can feel very lopsided because you're like, but I hit you with a las cannon. I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah, I don't care.
And but I mean, then you have the
But
game
then
where
one
it's like
goes through.
half the time it works, none of the time.
Yeah.
And you'll have a game where it's like, I don't have an armor save at all. I'm just.
And then you add a feel no pain to it, and you're like giving myself. And there's times where like I will fail armor saves all day, but I can make invul saves like nothing, like no
5-up. We used to joke that a 5-up invul is better than a 3-up armor.
Better than anything, yeah.
For
It's
some reason,
invulnerable.
it always feels that way.
Yeah.
So then I played that game against Craig. We went and grabbed some quick lunch, and then I played a game against Josh. And Josh rocked his Necrons, and there was a lot of Wraiths and a lot of Destroyers. And I brought the same list. Mutilated Vortex Beast did some work.
Yeah.
Did some work. The game did not go as
killed
well
all
for
my
me
immortals.
as the other game.
What did you just say?
He killed all my immortals.
Oh, I thought you said you killed one of my models. It's like,
Oh no.
wow, dude.
No, that was my game against Brian. So this was actually me bringing after our
Right.
game last time. You're like, so are Necrons fun? Which is always the question. Like this edition, are Necrons
Right.
fun? Not are they functional, but are they actually fun to play and play against? Are they fun to face off against? And after my game against Brian, my answer to that with that list that I had brought was no. I don't think that was a fun game because there was just way too much synergistic stacking of reanimation and things like that.
And no
This
progress
list
feels
had
made.
Zero of that. So I had nothing.
Stuff was still coming back.
Yeah.
I mean, frustratingly so sometimes, but not uncomfortably.
So the only one thing that I had that was just, it's the built-in stratagem where, if you kill the model, I can trigger reanimation. So
Right.
there was that one Wraith that you killed that had one wound left, so I triggered reanimation.
I hate
got
Wraiths
all 3
so
wounds
bad.
back. I'm like, you actually healed me.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It had one wound. I killed it, and then
right,
it
you
comes
were-
back full, and I'm like, what?
I'm healing him with my bullets.
Healing bullets. That was a great game though,
Yeah.
and
Really, really close on the points, too.
close on the points, but I was losing on the models,
Yeah.
but I mean, there was damage all across the board, for both parties. Like I felt like that was a fairly well balanced game.
Absolutely.
And Wraiths have always been like my nemesis. Aaron loves to run them as well. And man, they are just tough. And
was
they're
a
tougher now than they
Great
used to be.
scrum in the middle too,
Yeah,
with that
for sure.
demon prince and the wraiths. Because I failed a lot of my invuln saves with the wraiths. So your demon prince is like, if I fail a save, it's just a dead wraith because he's doing 3 damage or whatever per pop. So so that ended up being a really fun fight in the middle.
Yeah, and the thing I liked about that was it had me making choices between, do I want to do a lot of lesser wounds
and you
or
different attack profiles.
fewer more wounds? Because one fail is going to be a dead wraith. Okay, I'm going to go with the fewer attacks because they're hitting on 2s. Oh, look, 5 1s. It's like there was a time. But I mean, look, playing Josh is always fun and challenging because he's a good player. So I always learn something from it. So that was cool. Very cool.
That's why I love playing Blitzball with him so much. One game where I can, not the last time we played, but
I did leave that game going, well, what does a demon army look like? So
looks like corn demons right now.
I put together a list for my Tzeentch demons that I think
It's got Bellicor in it.
it's going to be super. It does not actually. I should, but it does have, because I think you asked, have you ever played a Lord of Change on the table yet? Because I was using
Oh, right,
For my
yeah.
demon prince, I was using the old Karos Fate Weaver,
Right,
which is
yeah.
painted up really cool. And I just love it as a demon prince.
Yeah, it's
Baby,
great.
baby fate.
But the new Lord of Change model is super awesome. So I was like, I want to put this on the table. What does a list built around that look like?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm good.
Which, yeah, once you hit, I mean, even 1,000 points, I don't know point wise what they are, but
I don't remember
1,500
200
points.
something.
Worth it
1,000
is
points,
what they are.
They're pretty
They'll
awesome.
be sweet, yeah.
They
Nice.
look pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So all right, you games played.
Yeah, I will. I'll just add to the game that you and I played that we were doing Leviathan style mission, but we
Yes.
were doing primary mission only, so no
Yes.
secondary. So it was just a little bit easier.
And
to
that was
track.
at my request because
Yeah.
my brain just can't wrap around everything yet.
And that's so the like full game that I played with Brian was like full on everything, which is part of why that game took so long, just because it was like our first real big game, and we just went like, let's do everything, and that was too much at once. But playing the second game of 40K that I played was with Sky, and he had his Eldar, which is predominantly Wraithguard and Wave Serpents. He had a small unit of Scorpions, small unit of Rangers, and then it's really 2 Wave Serpents full of Wraithguard with Spirit Seers each. And Spirit Seers, let me tell you, buff the heck out of Wraithguard.
So let me ask you this question.
Yep.
Because I know how that game went.
Right.
Had you brought the list you played against Brian, how do you think that game would have gone?
I think it would have been different. Excuse me. Yeah, but honestly,
Well, listen.
had that been the case, I don't think it would have been a fun game for either of us.
Okay.
I think it would have been a game where nothing's dying for anybody, and that's not particularly fun. And the one thing the reason I called that you and I were only playing primary missions is Sky and I also only did primary missions.
Interesting.
Sky's only played a couple games, so he's like, yeah, let's just do primaries. It's fewer things to keep track of.
Well, and he cheated because he had 2 more inches on
He
the
got a
table.
whole 2 extra inches or the deployment zone. So it was
It was endless amounts of giving. Listen, I've gotten
natured
enough about the Vindicators that I'm just going to...
you're just dishing it where you can.
Except I actually cheated. I didn't.
Knowingly? No.
No,
I felt so bad.
retroactively. This matchup was not a great matchup for me in the Necrons, and this was my friendly Necron list, and the toughness 3 wounds on Wraithguard with toughness 7, 2 up armor save. The Wraith Blades get an invuln save.
Yeah.
The Spirit Seer makes them +1 to hit. They can just bring a model back per turn,
Oh
which is a 3 wound, 2 up save, toughness 7 model that they can just get one back. I think Sky actually ended up bringing more models back to life in this game, and Wraithguard are really good models.
Wow.
So this game, like I haven't had my ass handed to me this hard in a game of 40K in a long time.
Holy
So I think Sky afterwards like, thanks for keeping me humble, man. Like, because my friendly list got decimated.
The rest of us are hosed. Again, thanks, Sky.
I learned a couple of things from that. So like, I would approach the game slightly differently, even if I had the exact same list. Like I would just play slightly more conservatively.
Okay.
Like he got first turn and just almost like took out one of my tanks on a single shot because he has fate dice with las cannons or bright lances on the wave serpents, and like so my tank had 1 wound left on it after the first turn, and this was only a 2.5 turn game. Like I didn't even get my turn 3, and it was like we can call it. Like I've got 1 model left. We're done. So it was. Yeah,
I sent you that link that GW just posted on the Meta Watch thing. That
Yeah.
was like, here's the top armies, and Eldar.
Eldar winning 67% of their games is not a surprise.
Yeah.
And
Thousand Suns winning like 55%. Clearly, they're not factoring my scores in.
well, when we go to that tournament, Carl, we'll see.
All right.
Someday. Anyway, it was a good game. Sky's a great opponent. Super fun guy to play a game with.
Yeah.
Wasn't the most fun game on the table as far as the interactions, just the matchup. It ended up being a rough matchup. I told Sky afterwards, like, I'll 100%, I will absolutely play against that list again. Like, let's try something. I will cater a list a little bit more to it, and I think it'll be a fun and close matchup. Hopefully it's fun for both of us. Like, if I bring a slightly more catered list to, because it's kind of, that list is kind of on par with an Imperial Knights kind of army where like, it's almost worth like these models are super tough, hard nut to crack. If you can't deal with them, you're not going to kill anything.
Yeah.
Which like for me playing against Knights is not like, that's not a fun matchup. It's not a game that I get excited to play. Of just like, I'm going to try and kill your 3 unkillable models. And okay.
I will say, I think 1,000 points is much better than Combat Patrol for me.
Yep.
I think Combat Patrol has an important role to play in getting new players into the game. It's not what I thought it was going to be, so it's just not quite for me. I talked about that last episode. Like, it's just interesting how I went from what I thought it was to, oh, this isn't what I think it is. I was very excited about it, and then I'm like, that's not for me. 1,000 points was a good sweet spot, especially as we're kind of ramping up.
Yeah.
I'll be interested when we move into like the 2,000 point, 1,500 point range.
15, 2,000.
Yeah, but I got to play with a lot of different toys at 1,000 points and try different things. And I really, really had a great time. And I want to kind of master that and then the secondary objectives, and before I move on to a bigger game.
So the last thing I'll say about the game with Sky is that because we were only doing the primary missions, it was a cool mission in that there's servo skulls in the middle. So if you control them, you actually move the servo skulls towards your opponent's zone, and depending how close they are to the deployment zone is how many points they're worth.
Interesting.
Which was a neat mission. It's just a cool idea, but we weren't playing secondaries, so that really made everything focused on the middle of the board. You can't hold back. You can't try to grab different objectives. Like the objectives in your deployment zone don't do anything.
That's
so
interesting.
They don't need to be there. Had we been playing secondaries, there would have been more focus on doing other things in that game, which I think would have naturally balanced out the game slightly more. Yeah. Just because there's more things scoring.
It's almost like they tested it at certain levels.
Right.
Because we played that 500 point game and it was really like the Marines re-rolling all this stuff. I was like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Well,
super
think
good
about
at
that scale, it's way powerful.
Yeah.
Because it's a third of his army is re-rolling.
30% against your army. Yeah.
Yeah. And then at a larger scale, it's like, well, it's really only one unit. Oh, that's a good point. Like, it makes such a huge difference. Yep. It makes such a huge difference.
Something Sky said, I was talking to him just about the games in general and what was going on. I think it's really a valuable point, and it echoed something you said to me about Combat Patrol, because that's what I did, is that at the 500 to 1,000 points, if you're not playing Combat Patrol, you're playing standard. 40K. I think there's an amount of talk to your opponent about what you're fielding, much like you were saying about saying, hey, Sky, let's run that back, but like, let me bring a list that's more appropriate to what we're doing here. I think at the lower point levels, and this has always been true, but I think for some reason it's feeling a little bit more true with 10th at the moment anyway, maybe just in our meta or our group. I think that's really possible. Like, you could very accidentally, because there's no force org anymore.
Agreed.
Yeah.
You could very easily accidentally bring a just not fun list.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
It's funny. I joked with Sky that he was like, man, this list isn't even as bad as it could be. Like, if I'd taken the net list, it would. And I was like, the fact that you're making that comparison,
I'm about to reach across the table and slap you, Sky.
No, like I had no stake in the game. I just came in and it was like, whoa, Josh is getting trolled. Yes. That sucks, dude.
Wow.
But I was like, and he was like, oh, it's not even as, and I was like, the fact that you're making that comparison, we good. I know where you're going.
Yeah.
I know it could be worse, but I think that that's something to be mindful of if folks are not wanting to do Combat Patrol. And as much as I really enjoyed Combat Patrol, actually, I can see all the reasons why somebody would go, meh, not for me. Totally get it. I'm still going to give you a hard time about it as much as I can.
Yeah, go ahead.
but yeah, I could see if you're building lists at 500 to 1,000, really easily,
you have
accidentally
to
creating a not fun game.
Because historically, 1,000-point game, you're going to have at least 2 troop units and HQ. You're probably not going to have more than that. So that's already a third of your army right there. Sent troops. And I hate the phrase troop tax because I absolutely love infantry in the game. Like, I'm definitely like a boots on the ground kind of player for the game, but
they'll hold objectives really well.
The fact that that's not there though, and it's open, a character and whatever else you want, let's go. Definitely could potentially warrant to that conversation. If you're
And I think as we were talking about it at the bigger point value, I think that's where you're going to see, well, I have, especially with the way the points are now, because they're very generalized. Well, now at 2,000 points, I think I can make a more all-comers list. Right? Like, you may focus on just one thing, but you're not going to have the answer for everything. And I'm hoping it distills down at that level to, I'm not strong in one area and focused on one area, but I can have an answer to multiple solutions. It may not be the perfect answer, but it's a generalized answer. Right. At 1,000 points, I think it's difficult to get to that point just because of the cost of the units and the way that you can't You can no longer say, well, I'll put in a point here or a point there. And it's not a complaint about it. I actually really like the generalized numbers. Like, it makes making a list for me. I'm really enjoying making lists as opposed to, okay, I'll take a melted gun out and then I'll put in I don't need that. I understand why people like it. Especially as I get to, I have 10 points left and I can't spend just 10 points on something. I just let go.
That's the thing it's those 15 points. I can't do anything.
Gotta let it go.
Like, no.
It does.
You can't take that melt-a-bomb that you're going to forget you had.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's right.
Yeah, well put.
But all that being said, I feel like as we get to a bigger point level and as we explore the game more and then say, hey, let's play a 2,000 point game, I'm going to have, I have a general, I can use more units and I have general answers to everything.
Right. I feel like there's like been a traditional early arc for every edition when the new edition comes out that there's what's the this is a safe minimum small size. You can play a fun game here. You are minimizing, but the game works. All things work properly.
That's a good way of putting it.
And then the tournament number becomes where are no lists hamstrung. At this points value is the number.
Yeah.
Somewhere in between there is usually the number I like because I'm like, you don't have an answer for everything. Whatever your built-in list shortcoming is, you're playing Tau. You're not good at close combat. And at this point level, you can't build necessarily enough redundancy to totally deal with that shortcoming.
Yeah.
I always like that, where it's like, no, the armies still don't have an answer for everything because they're designed not to, because they're thematically playing a particular way.
Right.
That's usually what I look for, but it takes a while to get there. Like,
I remember when
I learn the game.
When I was into it initially around 4th, 5th edition, the point list was like, it was a weird point. It was like 1850.
Yeah.
Was what it had settled on.
Yep.
That's what Adepticon played at. And then way back in the day, Nick had started from Tasty Taste, had started advocating in our group, hey, let's play less points. Let's play 1,500 points. And when you lose a unit, you feel it when you lose that unit.
And you have to make choices on how you build that list.
Yeah.
That's why I like it.
Yeah. And that became kind of a really fun way, I think, of playing after having so many toys for a while, then going, oh no, I have to really make I can't sacrifice a unit like I could at a higher point.
Right. Yep.
So,
Yeah, there's an amount of, I think that's traditionally what I found is whatever the tournament point level shakeout becomes of like, this feels right for tournament play.
Yeah.
And I get it. Like, you don't want one army that's hamstrung because that's the point total.
Yeah.
But then dropping that back by some percent
just to
seems
make a little,
and for casual play, it seems to work really well.
It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah,
because I think the 2,000 point level is what they're looking at for the tournament stuff. So.
Yeah. And I have a feeling that 1,500 to 1,750 is going to be kind of the sweet spot of that. What most of us are probably going to playing the game at.
Let's revisit this in the future and be like, oh man, we didn't know what the hell we were talking about.
That's the beauty of doing this stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's all on record now. All right, your games.
I got some games.
I'm sorry to.
No, hey, I'm here for it. And I actually was there for watching those games go down, so I was stoked. I'm going to do one way off topic real quick. Friday, at time of recording anyway, we kicked off our 3rd year in a row teacher role-playing game group, which I know has nothing to do with anything, but just the fact that we've had a role-playing group going for 3 years consecutively is like
still awesome.
That's really rad.
It's fun.
It's a great way. Every couple of weeks we get together and teachers blow off steam and laugh at silliness. All right.
Is that a continuous campaign or
we've switched? So
seasonal?
this year we're actually moving away from Dungeons and Dragons completely. We're trying out the Shadow Dark rules, which are super simplified 5e style rules. You've tried them.
Love it.
Carl will get in soon. And Matt's rocking the Dolmenwood campaign
Matt
setting.
is always running some different game system.
He likes to try new things, man.
Around.
he's a dabbler.
He is.
Yeah.
He is indeed.
We'll talk more about that later because I got some thoughts for you.
Okay, love it. But back to what brought us all together here today. Marriage. Let me see. I got to play a game of Space Hulk. As I mentioned, we had went and hung out with Cliff, Matt and I did, right? Again, wrapping down last few days of summer, and suddenly we're like, get all the games we can. And
Is Cliff a teacher also?
I know Cliff's retired.
Oh, Cliff is retired. Sorry. Sorry. I meant Craig. What does Craig do? Do you know?
Not a teacher.
All right,
Not a teacher.
Okay, keep going. Didn't mean to side.
I don't remember. Yeah.
I
We
forgot
got a
we're-
game of Kemet, which is a great tabletop dudes on a map battle board game by Matt ago. But then we got to play a game of Space Hulk. Cliff had never played Space Hulk. He learned that the Marines lose. It was, I don't think we got to the second room. Like, it was brutal.
It's so
bad.
hard. It's so hard.
Got
You got
nuked.
Now, were you playing first edition Space Hulk?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
But we throw in some helping tweaks. It's not quite as far as the Basement of Death guys balance it out to. But man, it was it was bad.
We're gonna have them on an upcoming show. They don't know it yet, but
Heck yeah,
we're gonna have them on an upcoming show and talk Space Hulk stuff.
Yeah.
Every time I play, I'm like, you were printing tiles, and I'm like, did you ever keep going with that? Yeah, I got you. So that was great though. Anytime you play Space Hulk, it's just fun as long as you know it's not balanced.
You're there for the experience.
So
and I think the point is you're supposed to
switch it.
Switch it. I play Space Marines this time, and then we rotate it, and now you play Space Marines. And
it's the one game where doing the like what, because you were kind of saying with Sky, you guys talked about like what should I have done different? How could that have gone different? It's the one game where like even when I'm playing Gene Stealers, I'm kind of rooting for the Marines. Like I'm going to eat them. I'm going to eat those Terminators so fast, but then I want to play it back to be like, okay, I did that. Don't do that. That sucked. That was a terrible idea.
It's one of the games
from how you failed.
It's one of those games that almost causes me some anxiety when I'm the Marines. It is literally so tense. You're like, it's great.
Yep.
But I mean, it has my nerves on edge.
That's how it should be.
It's fun.
Do you play with the egg timer too? Because you should.
No,
we did. We played with the timer.
Oh, you guys!
And my sergeant got popped real quick. It was like, oh well. And Matt was like, no, I'm not speeding up the timer on Cliff, who's never played. And I was like, I'll help him do it. Get him.
Got to learn.
And then, as you guys mentioned last time, got to play Aeronautica and a small 500-point regular game with Josh, which was magical and wonderful. Aeronautica is fun. Like I was like, no, this is fun. It's a very particular flavor of game that, again, these like small specialist games not feeling like GW games.
Yeah,
Aeronautica doesn't feel like a GW game to me very much at all.
Agreed.
I was actually shocked at how much it felt like the old version once I started playing missions. Like, of course I liked it. They canceled it.
Yeah, well, maybe for the best for all of us.
Yeah, probably.
At this point.
Well, you can still play with your planes in Legions Imperialis.
Except the minor Eldar.
Okay, you can't. But
you can't
new
play.
planes.
But we can play it.
We
can
still play.
Yeah,
I'll still play with you.
Game still exists.
So I got to play a game up at Skies of Combat Patrol, which I hadn't proper played with Cliff. It was Cliff's very first 40K game ever.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, Sky let him use his Leviathan
perfect
Combat Patrol.
person for Combat Patrol.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Space Marines, Combat Patrol, go.
He sent me sent us pictures today of he bust out. He had some Marines from something else and did paint tests on him. So he's ready to go. Celestial Lions and Praetors of Orpheus was the two color schemes. Celestial Lions gold with dark blue shoulder trim.
Yes.
I've always liked them.
Great scheme.
Praetors of Orpheus is like a cold white with light blue trim. Their chapter badge is crazy complex. They're an Ultramarine successor.
With the gold.
Yeah, that's what I told him. I was like, do the gold. I just think it looks hot. Blue, navy, and gold looks great.
Always. I agree.
It's a good combo. Looks like
but you got to somebody online. That's what you told him.
Yours that way.
What's that?
Stormcast. They were.
Oh yeah,
looks like Stormcast.
Yeah, they do.
But your Stormcast were not gold and blue.
I did the other guys, the silvery guys.
The better ones.
You did the scheme I was going to do. So I was like, I'm going to do this, and then you popped them out, and I'm like, oh, that was a scheme I was going to do. And I just lost complete interest in Stormcast and sold them all off.
It's all right. That's how that goes. You got cool chaos guys.
That's what I got a demon army for.
So here's the deal. I'll be roughly the counterpoint to Combat Patrol. I can understand the point about wanting to play with all your toys.
Yeah.
Got it. Like I'm already going like, but I want to play my other chaos demons and I can only play Khorne.
Got it.
I'm like, that's fair. Like I totally get why somebody wouldn't want a Combat Patrol for that. My phrase is this. Combat Patrol allows you to grip it and rip it with 40K.
Yep.
Like it's the only way that's going to happen.
Yep.
I completely agree with you.
And if you want to just get a game on the table right now and play, and it does cut back on the rules overhead, and the core rules are the same with one tiny tweak. I mean, the only change, the core rules are the same. Okay.
They are.
Yeah.
They are.
Mission rules, slightly different.
Army rules, very different. Unit rules, very
stats
different.
are identical. Abilities change slightly.
Yeah.
I haven't seen,
Which,
so I went and looked.
to me, caused confusion.
Sure. Yeah.
Right?
So I'll say I went and looked, and the only thing I found is Combat Patrol, you have fewer things to track.
Yes.
Not more. And somebody was telling me
Agreed.
like, oh, you have more to track.
No,
They're different.
no.
They're different. I'm like, no. They take
Less
things
to
from
track.
40K and they remove stuff.
Yep.
Right.
Because if you use the Chaos Khorne Demon points by, it's a massive force. It's
Yeah.
like actually a lot of, but they cut a bunch of things away from the Bloodletters that you get 2 units of. They cut a bunch of things.
100% agree with you.
So it is also simplified. I could see not wanting to have that, but I'm like,
It is
if
a stepping stone to 40K, right?
Right.
I do not feel, for me,
Mhm.
going forward as an experienced 40K player, albeit a new 10th edition player, learning 10th edition itself is well within my reach, as opposed to, well, let's play a distilled down version of your units and their abilities, which actually was going to lend it. Once I actually started playing, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm missing. It was, I didn't need that step, but I think it's a very important step for the hobby. I think it's a very important step for new players. I think it will get people into the game playing right away, and being able to try out different armies to say, oh yeah, I think, with a minimal investment, minimal in 40K is still substantial.
Those boxes are also a really good value.
Great value.
You get a nice discount on those boxes.
Yeah.
so say hypothetically you decided you wanted to play Tau,
Okay, hypothetically.
which is a safe bet that that's a hypothetical.
It was close. Anyway.
So I think that would be the best spot to start.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
That like even as an experienced player, if you're going to play a new army, pick up a combat patrol box, see if you like it.
I
If you
agree.
actually have that itch that you're thinking I might want to go this route.
If it is so divergent from something else I'm playing, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I completely agree.
New players, new armies, and then just a bespoke event. Like maybe it's not for everybody, but if somebody just had a combat patrol event, which is what Saturday was originally going to
You
be.
very well will see, I think, combat patrol events.
I hope you do. I really do.
I think that'll be fun, and that it is a different experience. Like it's still it's 40K light, it's still 40K core, but a slightly lighter version of that.
Yeah, it's
Diet 40K.
well, and I think that's an important point, and we're kind of going on here, but it's okay. I think that 40K as its own at the 500 point level doesn't quite work as well. Like it's just super swingy
Yes,
for
absolutely.
different forces. And this is a way of saying, here's a smaller version that you can play. It's a little more balanced.
Yeah.
It's a little tuned towards each other, not just by army composition, but army composition and some of the rules we've made more appropriate for that scale.
There's definitely
Totally
a
legit.
reason that they start lists at 1,000 points.
Yeah.
And I think that whole
And that just
like,
became very evident.
yeah, if you're going to play 1,000 points, you need to have that conversation. And there's kicks in a bunch of ands.
Yeah.
Combat patrol goes, you don't have to do that. You just sit down and play.
I think 2,000 points is going to be, like I said, and then like you said, a little bit down from there might make it. I don't know. We'll see how it all
See
plays
where it
out.
shakes out. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Enough so that I am starting to dig out my Iron Warriors.
Yeah, cool.
To be like, I want to learn what these guys do, and that's a great spot to start learning where they do.
Yeah.
At the same time, like I said, like chomping at the bit to get out my Tzeentch and Slanesh demons and go, what do these guys do? Which means I got to build a list if I want to do that because they don't have combat
they're not
patrols.
That's right.
Also, if you don't know, for folks listening, +1 to hit is a YouTube channel, literally +1, and you can go on there and he's pre-formatted to download your combat patrol books. Like it's the stuff
Nice.
that's for free from GW. He's just formatted for easy print.
Oh, is that what you had printed out? I saw it.
Cliff printed it out for me, but
That's cool.
I have the same thing for my unit cards for my Chaos Demons because
Yeah.
the cards weren't available when we did that day at Josh's.
Yeah.
And it literally was like
Little mini cut.
30, 40 minutes of effort and had all my stuff printed out.
Very cool.
Yeah, so I heavily recommend, like, if you're going to go that route and you want a physical copy, because I like you, I'm like, I like the book in hand. And yeah, go check out that YouTube channel. Easy print booklets, free.
Nice
Rock
to
'em.
know. Nice to
Yeah.
know. You were going to add something, Josh?
I was just curious. We're kicking this horse to death here, but like when you get to Sisters of Battle, like when you get to painting that up and start playing, would you start Combat Patrol, or do you think you would skip over that and just go straight to a 1,000 point game?
Boy, that's a really good question.
That's why
500 point would get me playing a lot faster,
right?
And realistically, I mean, with
That
the
gives you a
speed at
list
which
to
I'm gonna
build to
paint-
also with a
Yeah,
set bespoke list for Combat Patrol. I'm
That's-
just curious.
that's actually a good point.
Haven't played my demons both ways. They don't play different. there are units that have different rules, but the army played the same.
I mean, the general feel of the army is the same, but like, for example, the regular Chaos Space Marine, like I looked at that list and I'm like, where's the Chaos Space Marine? The Thousand Suns one's a perfect example. It's like a bunch of Zangors and then like some Terminators. And I'm like,
I don't want to play.
Where's the Rubric Marines?
They all turn to dust,
Yeah,
buddy.
Thousand Suns list, there's Rubric Marines, So I don't know. I mean, again, that's neither here nor there. That's all flavor and whatnot. But that's actually an interesting point. And it may, if I felt like those units were going to lead me to 1,000-point list, then yeah, I'd probably go Combat Patrol first, just so I could get them on and start playing and experience them.
Yeah, right.
That's one of the reasons I loved playing Craig, because I actually have not played against Sisters in a long time, and it was fun to see. Oh, okay, this is what this does, and that's what
they're
that
a cool army. I like how their mechanics work. They're fun to play against.
So beautiful too, just so beautiful. So yeah, I look at that and I'm like, can I do something that good looking?
Yes, you can.
I was asking him for how he did the hair and how he did this. So yeah, we'll see. Anyway, you know what we should do? We should take a short break. We'll come back and then we'll kick off the actual meat of the show, which is Jody seems to think is going to be 15 minutes, but we'll be right back.
Might have to at this rate.
All right, and we are back, and we're going to get into the meat of the show here, which is the Pinnacles of Plastic.
40K edition.
40K edition. So, again, this is really subjective on our part, but it's something that I thought was just kind of a fun exercise.
Science.
It's science. I distilled it down to a mathematical calculation.
Minor by grams of plastic.
What we did do, though, was limit it to anything within the Warhammer 40K universe. So Titanicus would apply. So would Necromunda. However, no Forge World models. So, there you go. Plastic is what we were really focused on.
Yeah.
Here.
Pinnacles of plastic.
Because everything would just be, I think a lot would be Forge World model options.
There's a lot.
And, it's a massive line, but again, it's one of those things that, can you pick your favorite song or can you pick your favorite movie? Like, it's very difficult to do. So we've distilled these down into, a few different categories. And the first one we're going to start with is your favorite infantry model. Now, later we'll talk about HQ model, and this could overlay too. So you could pick 2 HQs, whatever. It's really subjective, super up to us as to what was our favorite model.
Yep.
And so since Jody is not the regular anymore on the show, Jody's not regular.
I'm irregular.
Yeah, goofy.
Jody, let's start with you.
Okay.
And what did you pick of all the choices, all the 40K plastic models? And we're going to be biased.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Jody, what did you pick as your favorite 40K infantry model?
I'm realizing now mine has a theme across all selections. I just realized, and it wasn't intentional, but it is.
All did that.
So, okay, I will say this was double. I don't know about double, but was extra hard when you take an edition off. And GW made some models during 9th.
Yeah,
a lot.
There was stuff I'd never seen, I realized, and was like, oh, wow. I somehow completely missed that exists, and it's freaking neat. This isn't, because it's from the Sisters line, and I went the Arco-Flagellant kit, the new plastic Arco-Flagellants.
Love that kit.
Yeah.
So this is their first time in plastic. They were in metal, and I think a couple different little showed up here and there's, and there was a metal and fine cast.
The original that I ever remember of this was the single Arco-Flagellant from Inquisitor, 54 millimeter scale.
Yeah, there was that one.
That was the one. That's where I first fell
You were
in
the
love
only
with.
person that played that.
I probably was, but it was a lot of
Anthony
fun.
and that Chico crew way back in the day, there was a huge thing. Anyway, these guys, the Arco-Flagellants, are just iconic grimdark, Blanchitsu aesthetic. Mm-hmm. Also, when I used to play Fantasy Battle, and even still when I do any Imperial anything, my go-to kit was the Empire, when there was an Empire, Flagellants.
Yeah. Yep.
Because it was just bits. It was weird, zany, fantasy, grimdark bits. Mm-hmm. this kit is that in 40K. I need cool bits of clusters of tubing. This kit's got it. I need weird padlocks for guys. This kit's got it. I need weird like repressor style covered helmets. This kit's got it. Yeah. I need jacked out muscle bodied, with stim injectors. This kit's got it. I need cool dynamic running. Like this kit's got it. Like it's a bits box of a kit. So this one, I'm like just on flexibility, even if you don't play this army, because it's a bespoke sisters unit, the ability to just pilfer from it is so valuable. I use this unit in my sister's army, and they are real effective. At least they used to be.
They are, yeah.
And I still bought a box of these plastics, even though I have no intention of updating my sister's army to the new stuff. I still have a box of these just because of Iron Warriors, and those kind of bits are perfect for chaos. If I need that weird Archaeotech,
Necromunda too, or any chaos conversions, it is.
Yeah, so this they won out over a myriad of choices, and also I probably would have picked the same one you picked, Carl. But over a handful of other choices that were really tough to pass up on, and I did limit myself on this. I was like, no, I want to pick a unit box, like that. It's I did do that for infantry on this one.
Probably should have thought about that when I did it. But that would have been a good limiter
category.
Yeah, and I just because those you and I share that of like when I play, I want to see. There's a charm to just giant demons flying around and fighting knights. That's cool too.
Yeah.
But when I think of 40K, I think of boots on the ground. And I've always felt that way. Like I want to see some squads of guys doing stuff. So I tried to limit to like, okay, squads of guys. And it was interesting. I didn't think of these at first and was scrolling through and went, oh yeah. Oh man, that kit's, I actually have that kit. It's, I think, the only new sisters thing I bought because I was like, nope, I'm just buying a box of bits.
Yeah, that's awesome. So Arcoflagellants are in the Sisters Combat Patrol. So this is the one thing, the reason Craig couldn't feel the Combat Patrol when we were doing a Combat Patrol game is because he didn't have this. Because from a lore standpoint, he thinks of Sisters or appreciates the angle of Sisters that's more of martyrdom versus conscripted penance, right? Which I was like, man, it doesn't get more grimdark than that. This is indentured martyrdom. Yeah, which is that's as peak grimdark as it gets. But he really liked the choice of martyrdom. So thematically, he's chosen not to go with these, but they are an amazing kit. So
that was mine. Is just that Blanchitsu, that vibe. It's a brand new kit that still captures that like deep old school. Last time I was on, we talked about the Realm of Chaos books.
Yeah.
And these, man, if you, other than looking really way too good, but if you stuck a picture of these in the OG Rogue Trader book, it would look totally appropriate.
Yeah.
And that to me was just so cool. The little collars they have, the padlocks, have like different numbers and things on them. So, and those are separate bits, which is not quite the cigar to attach, but there is like those alone are worth having for just weird bits on things. Anyway, so I picked a bits box on my first selection, but it's a good looking.
It's a great box. Yeah. That Repentia squad too did some work for Craig. Like he tore up vehicles with that
Eviscerators do some work.
Yeah. Not too shabby.
They got to like maybe.
It's interesting. You talk about that, and earlier I was joking about buying Adeptus Custodes because I got caught up in the Talons of the Emperor coverage we did. But sisters are one of the reasons I own so many in plastic is because I had always said I love this army, and when it comes out in plastic, if it ever comes out in plastic, I'm going to buy it. And I made good on that word. Haven't played it yet,
right.
But the sisters base box set is really good.
I really thought that was what I was going to go, and I went and started looking at the sisters line and was like, oh yeah, the base battle sisters. And then I saw this kit and was like, that's
it's just interesting. You tap that, and I didn't even consider the sisters box set, and that's a really good one. That's a really good one. Josh, what did you go with?
I went with the tried and true Eversor Assassin.
Cheater.
Always love this model. It's amazing. Skull head, dynamic pose, muscle suit, the synth skin. It's got everything. Amazing needle pistol. The current version, which is the plastic version, is the third version of this model, to my knowledge. Because I guess the Rogue Trader Assassin was more Eversor than anything else, but still very just ninja generic assassin. Where
space ninjas.
I just hear Ice Cube or Vanilla Ice in my head. Go ninja, go. Sorry. The Eversor ain't that, but the first one was.
Nope. Yeah, the first one definitely was. So there was two metal versions before this, which were actually available simultaneously, which was interesting.
That's right.
Because there's the one with the guy with the sword holding the head, and then there's the other guy was just pistol and claw, which the Eversor has both options available for him with new plastic model. Took all those things, combined them into one. So now you have pistol, sword on the back, claw out there. It's just amazing model. I've always loved the lore. I mean, look at our rare 40K materials cover, the Assassin's Code. Like, so I've always appreciated the lore and aesthetics of the Assassins and gameplay. They're super fun too. One thing you asked us in the questions per choosing model is like, do you play this? Does this model hit the table very often? And for me, the answer is not very often, because mostly for lore reasons, like especially with my only Imperial army being Sharkadons. They're way out in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
There's no reason that there would be an assassin there. But in games we've played, like when I had my Salamanders army previously, I would have assassins for large games. Like if we did an apocalypse-sized game, like, yeah, there's a reason that this guy's here. He's going to go do his special mission. So that's fitting. I love the lore, love the models. Hard to go wrong. So
Nice.
How about you, Carl?
For me, man, that Sisters box set. Now I'm rethinking my choice, but I did choose the brand new Chaos Space Marine basic set, the basic Chaos Space Marine box set. It is such a massive improvement over the previous iteration, and I didn't really give that its proper respect until assembling Shell's Chaos Space Marine Night Lords from that kit. There are so many kind of different looks you can give each of those guys because there's so many options and bits on the sprue. But beyond that, we were talking earlier about iterations of Space Marines and how they looked from set to set. This set biggins them a little bit.
Yep.
Like it makes them a bit bigger. But after assembling Shells, I had several squads of fully painted Black Legion Chaos Space Marines from the old set that I thought, I'd added bits from some Warhammer Fantasy stuff, and I thought they had looked pretty good at the time. And there's just no comparison. There is no comparison to how good these new ones look and how versatile they are.
Yeah.
The
crisp detail, new molds.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And
larger
all
scale.
that
filigree.
Baroque filigree and trim and those spike, the degree of ease of paint alone.
Yes, and that's the other thing. Like, I hear a lot of people complain, and Colin in particular about Thousand Suns would complain about doing all the gold on them. Like, these have a lot of gold on them. It's not difficult to paint, though. It's so crisp. It's so easy. You're not running into the problem you were talking about, where your paint is delineating what that ends. No, it's there for you. Everything is modeled on it.
Yeah.
They are such a large leap ahead, and you have the opportunity within that kit. The Night Lords typically historically have the big bat wings on their heads, but like, I think, to be fair, I think that's a little bit of a dated look for them, and we went with more like these swept horns, but we could choose, like, this head looks more Night Lordy than this head. Let's use these heads, and we were able to build a thematic looking unit from that set. Meanwhile, like, my Black Legion looks a little bit different. I went with a little different aesthetic choice just from the same kit.
Yeah.
There's so many bits in that kit. It is such a great model kit. I was torn, honestly, as I looked at this, between this and then the basic, like, Primaris Intercessor kit. Yeah. Because the new Marines, too, are
tons of options.
So good looking.
Too, yeah.
But in terms of flexibility, you can do whatever you want with Marines, but I feel like they're just good versions of Marines. Whereas these guys, I feel like they've really got a lot of character to them. And it's not until I'd assembled a bunch of them before, but not until I then just grabbed a bunch of bits I had and stuff and started piecing together Shell's Night Lords was I like, dang, these guys look really good, and their poses are great, and you can shift things around a little bit. Shell moved one guy's arm in a way that I was like, I wouldn't have thought to put his arm like that, but that looks awesome. This is a fantastic kit. And
super flexible.
I took all my old Black Legion models, popped them off all the bases, dumped them in a bag. I don't even know what I'm going to do with them. They're to me, it's like these are garbage.
Oh yeah.
These are garbage. All the new ones are the only thing that matters. Fortunately, the bases, Shell wanted the bases, so I was able to pop all of it. Here you go. You can have these bases.
Yeah.
When I started working on my Ironwares, I was really keyed up to use all of the Dark Vengeance Chaos Space Marines
which were great.
which are great, and they're like chosen, and they're all corrupted, and they're still great models. But then when I put them next to the new Chaos Marine kits, even the push fit ones, the new Chaos Marines got appropriately big upped because you have to now, and the detail, I was shocked to see that even on those really ornate old Dark Vengeance models, these guys held up really well. And I was like, it almost doesn't look appropriate for those old Dark Vengeance models, as cool looking and unique as they are. And I absolutely saw the same thing of like, well, you can really like, how do I want the horn helm to be? And like, I had the exact same experience of like, dang,
amazing.
Surprisingly able to give them personality, and like each one is his own little renegade, right? Like that's kind of the narrative.
Yeah.
And you can get that across. It's for a kit that doesn't have a ton of, like, there's a lot of bells and whistles, but they're not just extra stuff, right? If that makes sense.
No, completely agree.
Yeah.
Completely
You
agree.
can get character across without having to add 600 purity seals.
So I'm super, super jazzed with them.
Great kit.
Super jazzed with them. So that was my choice. All right. So moving on to the next choice here.
Category,
I should say. We went with your favorite large model. And I said, note, this could be an HQ because see the HQ section, right? It can be an HQ. It could be a vehicle. It could be whatever's a large model for you. By the way, I just want to throw out there for Chaos, the other thing they did that was really nice is the Land Raider in the not the model, but the actual rules for the Land Raider in Chaos now. That vehicle holds 12 models instead of 10, which it used to before. So now they allow you to attach
I think they
a HQ to the 5-man squad.
Rhinos can now hold 12 models, so you can have an HQ in a
I
Rhino
didn't
with
even
a squad.
notice
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I didn't even notice that.
Big deal.
That is
Yeah.
a big deal because one of the things that used to frustrate me with my old Death Guard was I wanted Typhus along with 5 Terminators, but you could only do Typhus and 4 Terminators.
Unless you got a Redeemer or a Crusader, because they had higher capacity.
Right, which you
transport capacity
didn't have
right,
as a
yeah.
Chaos player.
Yeah.
So now I think because of the way they're allowing, I had a hard time not choosing Land Raider. By the way. I did not choose Land Raider, but I love Land Raiders, and but I was super excited to see that as an option for me.
Yeah,
because thematically I got some ideas.
nice.
All right.
So what did you actually choose?
Okay, so let's go with me.
Go big.
We'll go with me since I didn't choose the Land Raider, the Chaos Land Raider, or it would have been honestly Land Raider Crusader. But I chose the Lord of Change / Karos Fate Weaver kit.
Amazing kit.
So good.
Oh my God. What an improvement.
Yeah.
Now, the Fate Weaver model, I loved the old Fate Weaver model until the new one came out. Yes. And then you were like, oh my God, this is a true demon.
A little bit of a scale change.
This is a true chaos demon. Like the scale change is massive.
4 times the size.
The old Lord of Change,
no confusing it.
for me, was super goofy looking.
That super long neck sticking out there.
Yeah, and
it had a place.
It was what they could do at the time. But what they did with this model is so detailed. And the pose is amazing. On the table, it's an imposing looking figure.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is, and I'm not a bird guy. Like I'm not into birds, right? But
That's a good looking bird.
But this is a good looking bird. Karos himself with the 2 heads. I've always thought he's a fascinating character too.
Yeah.
With a great lore and man, is he realized on the table. The weapons that they have and the options, are somewhat limited. You have the sword or the staff or rod, but I think they all look fantastic. There's nothing I don't like about this model.
No,
there is nothing I don't like about this model. And the funny thing about it was, and this has happened multiple times. At the time, before this model came out, Games Workshop had a Demon Prince, and then they had some models for this and whatnot. And a lot of third-party options were potentially available. Creature Caster had these great models. And I remember Justin had done a Creature Caster order, and their version of the Lord of Change, I don't remember what it's called, Justin was like, you can have it because you're into Tzeentch. And I don't need it. And I was so excited. I'm like, oh, this is a great model. Look at this. And then boom,
GW drops the real
GW
kit.
drops the Lord of Change. And I'm like, oh. So Creature Cast, when I offered it back to Justin, it's still sitting in a box up there. And I'm like, I'm not using this piece of junk.
I'm going to take the head out
It's
of
a
it.
gorgeous model.
Don't get me wrong. It's a great model, but it's like that. The Lord of Change for me was, it may have even been one of the like large impetuses for me to do like a Tzeentch army. It was just like, it's one of those models that I saw and instantly fell in love with and was like, how do I build that and then build a army around that model?
Yeah.
Oh, it's such a centerpiece with those sweeping wings.
It's so good.
Now, especially because this is the third version of the model, third version of Lord of Change, right? Because the original one was tiny.
Yeah.
Right. Modular, tiny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the previous one that was around since, I think, second edition, that metal one that previous with the super long neck sticking out, the staff. But then, this one is a world of difference.
Just like they took it to a whole new level with these new demon. Like it started with, I don't remember if it started with the Bloodthirster, right?
Yeah.
The Bloodthirster came out, and I was like, oh, everybody's like, look at that Bloodthirster, that's amazing. And I kept going, I really want to see what they do with the Lord of Change. And then that thing came out, and even the Slanesh one, like they came out with the demons for each of these things, and every single one has been fantastic. But for me, Lord of Change just blew my mind.
I think the maybe best thing I can say about this is after building, because it's not a small model and there's a lot of detail. So after building it and painting it, immediately wanted to do a second one.
Yeah.
And for usually you do those kind of big involved kits and you're like, all right, that was a chore.
Yeah.
That was a Thunderhawk. There we go. But this was like, no, man, like I really want to do another one with the other loadout and then like use some of the bits. And then I've pilfered that box. I have very few of my one I've done bits left because of models I'll talk about later. But like, God, it's a great kit and it doesn't look heavy for such a huge model. It looks light.
Like it can fly.
Yeah, it looks like it could fly.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
killer.
It's just, and I diverting a little bit. Like I've used this army in Age of Sigmar at least once. I played against a listener and a guy who came over here and played, and turned out he's like best friends with my cousin. And so it was like, oh, hey, like we knew all the same people. So it was cool. We played, and he was playing the goblins that use the moon thing.
Night goblins.
Night goblins.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, in Age of Sigmar, I don't even know if it's the current edition. It was like, well, I'm going to cast this. And I'm like, according to this, I just say, no, you don't. And I would just dispel everything he tried to do. It was amazing. But there was also a list where you could have multiple Lords of Change. And I was like, oh yeah, I need to get a couple more of these guys. Like I would not be opposed to fielding that crazy list.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah. And I did run him at Nova Open when I went to Nova Open in the 40K against the Custodes, and it was a great time. It's a good model. It's got decent rules in 10th too.
Yeah.
So
nice.
All right, so that's me. Like Lord of Change, hands down.
Solid choice.
This was not a hard choice for me, this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did have a hard time because there are so many amazing models, but the one definitely stood out to me, and this was the newest Avatar of Cain. The Avatar of Cain, just amazing model. This is the fourth rendition of this model. If you include the Forge World version, there was the
Rogue
Forge
Trader
World version, which was teeny tiny. Then there was the second edition version, which was comparatively teeny tiny with this very large top knot. Then the Forge World version was similar to this scale, and I think really more of what this model was inspired by.
I agree.
The new plastic version very much takes a lot of its design cues from that Forge World version, but having multiple head options, you got helmeted, unhelmeted, a couple options there. You can do spear, you can do axe, you can do sword for Wailing Doom. Just scale, detail, etc. This is I think 130 millimeter model, so it is a proper good size model. It stands up nice and tall, unlike the previous edition of the Avatar would probably be about the size of a Primaris Marine now.
I never saw the X on this model.
Oh, yeah.
That is cool.
And do you see the unheaded option?
Yes.
Or unhelmeted, which
Unhelmeted,
is more like I don't know. For me, it truly, it's a gorgeous model, super dynamic. Love the pose, love the sculpt, love the detail of it. But it also really brings the lore to life. Like, it is that molten god of war with elf demon all in one, and that's it. I love that model.
Yeah. We have for the Sheldar, we have the Forge World one with the spear, which I just love that model.
Yep,
it's
it.
primo, but this is absolutely, like, you can tell it's inspired by that Forge World one.
Yeah,
Forge
100%.
World stepped it up, and then they were like, oh yeah, here, watch this in plastic. Here's all the options you get, because the Forge World one was you get the guy with the sword or you get the spear one, and you had to buy the whole unit. This is a great model.
You've got the options in there. Yeah.
Not a bad choice at all.
There's some real subtle aesthetic stuff about that has like a old school Myrmidian, like nautical, like it's very subtle, but it has that like Greek sail vibe to it a little bit, which is so smart for the Eldar because of their whole Eldari ship life craft world nonsense.
They
like that's their deal. But like I thought that
boats.
jumped out. I don't know why. Like that was the one thing I was like, because if you're gonna put out something new like this, it's got to have its own. And I was like, that's such a smart new take on the Avatar to give it that very subtle
Kind of Greekish.
nautical vibe to it.
The flames coming off of it are really cool
the
too.
Greeks invented everything, just like the Eldars.
There you go. This, I am somewhat ashamed to say, was one of the like missed an edition, missed some models.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
yeah.
I had no idea. And then was like scrolled through. I saw Josh put this and I was like,
Oh, what's that?
whoa.
That's awesome.
Thought I was talking about little tiny second edition Metal Man,
Yeah.
which was a great model too. But this just such a beautiful evolution of that model.
The tiny one was terrible.
It wasn't bad for the time.
Okay.
I have the 90s
you
was
have to
the time.
quantify it with the time, but
So in answering the question, I don't yet have this in my army because I don't have a current Eldar army, but I absolutely do intend to start one for 10th edition, and there will 100% be an Avatar.
nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Always fun to kill an Avatar.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Jody.
So you guys went small though. I really took the large
You
to
did.
heart.
Yeah.
Like y'all, I don't know. I felt like I completed the assignment.
I almost went with a knight.
Okay.
I mean, he's
this is
overcompensating, so.
still, you're not there yet with a knight. So you asked earlier
Plastic
if I had
Thunderhawk?
what's
That's
that?
only this big.
Oh, right. Plastic Thunderhawk is only about 3 inches.
There we go. So you asked if I had any regrets. This was the one thing when I sold my arcs that it was hard. Like packing it up was like, man, that's tough to let it go. So I'm going to go with the Stampa kit. The Orc Stampa.
It's a good one.
The reason I picked it, other than it's just a really neat model, I mean, it is a really stylish ceramic pot turned upside down. Really blinged out ceramic potting plant. But when this came out, somewhere roughly around the time the Baneblade kit got put out, this completely redefined what was possible from GW Plastics.
Yeah.
Like that we could play 40K games at this scale. And it was a long time before we saw those knights and those greater demons. It was a long while of the Stampa and Baneblades being these huge kits before we saw other similarly scaled models. So
I think the Baneblade came out during the first Apocalypse.
That feels right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the Stampa was somewhere right
Very
in that window.
in there. Yep.
Funny enough, I couldn't help put in here. It's actually kind of a good deal for the size of model it is. Its current retail is $140.
Considering that the Avatar that he just lists is 110, that's not a bad deal.
A knight, the base knight's 170.
Yeah. Getting a lot more plastic for your
Interesting.
model.
It's hollow, which is a big part of it.
Yeah.
Like it is, I will tell
It's
anybody who's
mostly
like,
air.
I want a Stampa, that in hearing that, this is for a plastic kit is a pretty tough model to build. There's a lot going on there. The detail on it is.
So would you say plastic glue?
Yeah. Yeah. I was talking to, when I sold the army, the person was asking how I painted it. And Adon was asking me too, because of terrain. For weathering, I'm a big proponent and have been for years of, you can make with water-based wood stain, you can make huge vats of wash.
Yeah.
I literally made a bucket of wash and dunked mine in a bucket.
That's funny.
To weather it, my Stampa. So, and then just jarred up the wash afterwards and had just jars of wash for years.
That's funny.
The other crazy thing about this kit is it's surprisingly customizable. Usually these really, really big kits are tough to customize. The Stompa, because of the ramshackle nature of orcs, and if you're a diehard orc player, you probably like converting stuff, and you probably have bought some plastic card. Man, this kit takes to it surprisingly well. eBay Miniature Rescue on YouTube just did a second one. Man, the first one is a thing to behold.
I love watching his videos.
Yeah.
Did you see the first Stomp video where the guy had done the chest opening up with a chest full of guns?
No.
But the guns were receipt tape rolls, and it's just a pile of receipt. And he saves it, and it's a beautiful model when he's done. And then this second one's kind of an homage to that, actually. It's pretty amazing. But it's a testament to how convertible, with some know-how and skill, but it's not like... It's not like resculpting an organic shape, you know? Or
No, I get you.
Like changing the pose even on a knight is pretty onerous. Like a 40K scale knight, there's a lot that goes into that because you have fixed pivot joints.
I always feel like the pose on this thing is really, I mean,
there's no pose. It's a pot.
No,
the feet are like Mr. Potato Head feet.
Yep.
You know, it's kind of like the left one up or you know.
But
it's so
well, you can
in
add
character.
to it. Like you can absolutely add a shoulder platform with a
Oh,
dude
yeah.
with a gun and a giant rocket. And
once upon a time, Forge World had stuff that you could drop in on them. So
Oh, did they?
there were alternate heads. There was a gut cannon. Gut buster cannon.
man.
There was
the belly blasted.
I didn't realize. So it's just like an add-on that you could have had.
And I won't, at the height of us doing really large scale event games, because there was a time when in our group we were doing a lot of big, I was very tempted to get a second one. It was very tempted. And do you get to use it a lot? No, because of what it is. You're not using it all the time. Those of you who have Warhound Titans and you know, Reaver Titans, you're probably not busting them out every weekend. But man, when you do, it's so fun. So parts of you asked about regret, the letting go of my Stompa was tough. That one was
buy one just to paint it and display it?
No, but because I don't want to paint orcs anymore.
Fair enough.
Like that's why I let go of my orc army. As I was going through and I was looking at all these projects, I had like 70-80% done that I was like, these are cool projects that I just, after painting that many orcs, I'm like, I'm good.
Yeah,
no
I
more,
can understand.
No more
I
green
can
and yellow.
understand that. I mean, painting a ton of Tyranids is one thing. Like my first army that I fully painted was Tyranids, and it almost broke me. I remember opening the box and looking at the sprues, going, "Oh my god, what did I do?" And I remember my friend Ryan one time, he was doing Tyranids, orcs, and Eldar, and he's like, "Well, what do you think's easier to paint?" I go, "Tyranids." Again, hands down, do Tyranids, Ryan. Don't. You know, it's so much easier. He goes, "Oh, I think orcs are easier." I go, "You're wrong."
and
then
so much more detail.
He called me a couple months later, and then
comparatively,
he's like, "Oh, you're right. The orcs there's just way more detail." on it.
There is, I don't know what it is. I always really enjoyed painting orcs. I mean, I hit my threshold, but that was quite a threshold.
You had to enjoy painting orcs.
Yeah, I really did. Like even boys, like every time I'd go back and do a new squad of 10 boys or something, it was still fun. And this thing was genuinely fun to paint. It was not fun to build because you're like, you lean the sides together and glue the big main torso is individual plates, and you kind of place them on the base plate and then lean them into each other. Like you're building a deck of cards.
It's the Necron pyramid.
Yeah.
Aaron has complained many times about how that thing is.
the monolith or the
monolith.
the tesseract,
The monolith.
or
Yeah, so it's like that, but now they're not squared up shapes. They're weird, abstract-y. And they have to fit snug, otherwise you have gaps inside. To see inside, you'd have gaps.
But with all that, that's your
Still,
this model.
it's if one part historic, like just what that kit did. Second was loved mine, loved playing it, loved painting it, loved building it. And then finally, it's, you want large, I'll give you large. This is a large model.
That's true.
It's got a
non-Forge
guy.
World large.
It's got
the
presence.
Baneblade.
Yeah. I mean, how often you get to set a potted plant on the game?
Fair enough. Fair
So
enough.
That was it was just a joy of a model.
So something I've neglected to mention at the beginning of the segment that I meant to mention was we learned last time after doing the historical, the old lore items of 40K. We will start a thread on the Facebook group for if you're interested in sharing what your favorite model is, because we're very interested in knowing what you think your favorite
Yeah,
model is in
absolutely.
comparison to us. And you can tell us where we're wrong. But we will start a thread there when this episode has released. And please just post in that thread rather than starting a bunch of other threads, because that was the problem we had last time.
Yeah.
And we recognize, this may be one of those episodes where people
Can't
start
wait.
sharing. And I desperately am looking forward to what people think. So, because there's been some great releases. And yeah. All right. So we're going to take a short break. We're going to come back with our other two categories. And yeah, we'll be right back. All right, and we're back, and we are still talking about the Pinnacle of Plastic,
Yes, we are.
40K models, and what our favorite choices are. And, you know, it was a while since I wrote the notes, so I'd forgotten what I picked next. Yeah. Perfect.
Little foreshadowing.
Little foreshadowing earlier. You know, I'll just
Surprise.
start with me,
Yeah.
since spoiler alert. Favorite vehicle model.
Yeah.
Favorite vehicle model. And there are a lot of vehicles, from flyers to tanks to walkers to all kinds of stuff.
All the options.
All the options. Mine was the Land Raider Crusader Redeemer. I forgot I had picked it.
What? You still like it.
See, I still like it. Okay. So the Land Raider holds a really interesting place in my history with Warhammer 40,000.
Total up.
One of the first things that I did not like about Space Marine armies was the Land Raider and the Rhinos. I was like, look at these World War I looking, tanks. How come they're not cool looking? And at some point, and this has happened to me with 40K models in the past too, except for the corn lawnmower. Well, maybe that's changed now that I've seen that paint job. But where I initially have kind of a negative reaction to a model, and then over time I'm like, oh, well, actually, this is kind of really, really cool, especially once I hold one in hand. For some reason, the Land Raider Crusader at one point just landed for me. Its ability to have all the guns on it, and, do the guns go in the front door or the back door,
Because you used to measure from the guns.
how are you supposed to play? Oh, is it cheating if you put them in
You
the
used to
front?
unload your guys from the specific doors too, so it did make a difference.
Right,
how
but
you
it also
handled
doesn't make sense to put them behind. And the guys get out in
Gun
front of the
into
guns. So the Land Raider Crusader was just, for me, it became kind of like the vehicle I talked about this earlier with the Lord of Change. I would say, well, I'm going to make this Marine army. I'm starting with a Land Raider. What do I build around? What am I going to put in it, and what do I build around
There's
it?
your base.
Right.
What do you-
And like, that was how I started my chaos list. That was how I started those. And then it was the Land Raider Redeemer with the heavy flamers on it that Jeff, for those of you who have not listened to the show in its first couple years, Jeff was the original co-host of the show who played Salamanders. And every Salamander player had Vulcan in their list because it twin linked all of your flamers for everything. So you're
My
re-rolling wounds. They're auto hitting. And Jeff would cruise around with this Land Raider Redeemer, as well as a Rhino full of guys with flamers that would just jump out
Because Twin Link Flamers auto hit and rerolled wounds.
and re-rolled wounds. And he'd get out with and lay pie plate after, or teardrop plate after teardrop plate on
I
every.
also played Salamanders.
Oh boy, they were brutal.
Land Raider Redeemer, staple for sure.
But also, I thought the Land Raider Redeemer just looked cool. Like visually, I could picture it in my head just driving like shooting, flame out, and just nothing to me. I have to say, nothing to me speaks more 40K than a Land Raider Crusader or Redeemer.
Yep.
It is
Giant
just
tank with fire.
It's just like, I mean, there's skulls and there's this, and then there's the Land Raider. It is, and I'm super happy it sounds like it's back in edition. Because you may not know this, but I own a lot of Land Raiders and a lot of Forge World variant Land Raiders, which unfortunately I'll just use as Land Raiders.
Next game, 1,500 points. Bring a Land Raider.
I'm doing it.
Yep.
I almost put it in the 1,000 point
I mean, that's a fair choice. With the Repulsor being out, and obviously not your choice for vehicle, but that is kind of the more futuristic tank of a Land Raider.
Yeah.
But how does that compare for you?
Yeah.
I mean, you didn't choose it, so I know.
No, I
But-
didn't. And for me, it's one, the anti-grav technology, like I feel like belongs to the Eldar more, but now the Imperium's clearly advancing and moving into it. I have to say, initially I was kind of, and here it is. Initially I was like, meh, I don't know. I still like a Land Raider. Now that I've got one and I've seen it in person, I'm like, okay, this is kind of cool. You know, this is pretty cool. But for me, nothing holds the more like true 40K thing is the Land Raider. I will be sad if they retire Land Raiders. Like, you know, they've begun retiring some units. If they retire Land Raiders for me, and this is obviously the newer edition of the Land Raider I'm speaking of, not the original that had the huge, you know, tank tread all around them that they brought back for Horus Heresy.
Was it the Proteus?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
but
I
they
think
look
that's
real
what it's
cool.
called.
I
Yeah.
like those ones.
I do not like those ones. Still don't like those ones. Never liked those ones. For me, it does not
That's
work.
nostalgic for me.
And I know
old Epic and
Yeah.
old editions of 40K. But
Yeah, and I know some people love it, right? That's fine. For me, there's very few models I do not like, and I can actively say no, do not like it. That is one, and the Corn Lawnmower is one. I would rather go bigger than a Land Raider and go with the Forge World.
Mastodon?
No, not the Mastodon. What's the Space Marine one?
The Spartan.
Spartan.
Spartan assault tank.
Yeah, the Spartan Assault Tank. I freaking love the Spartan Assault Tank.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
but we're not talking
an
about
upscaled Land Raider.
We're not. Well, I wonder why I love it, right?
So
Well,
maybe
and let me add to that, because we were just talking about Land Raider rules. With my Black Legion list, I have a Spartan Assault Tank because I was like, well, I can't fit a HQ and Terminator armor and 5 Terminators in a Land Raider, so I guess I have to go with Spartan Assault Tank.
so.
Problem solved.
Yep.
10th edition has solved my problem.
Got it in a Land Raider now.
Got a Land Raider.
So what if they just, upscaled for Chaos, upscaled and made a bespoke Chaos Land Raider that was a little bit scaled up to match the scale increase?
Yeah. But
I'm just putting positive in the universe for you, buddy.
I love it. I love it. Yes, please.
Yeah. No, my
If they
Iron Warriors would have
upscale, if they
those-
upscale Land Raiders in general,
yeah.
Yeah.
yep.
It's on my mind because Cliff was saying it was the first time when we played. It was the first time he'd ever seen a rhino in person.
And he was like, it's so small.
Yeah. We're like, yeah.
Yeah. Listen,
Transports have never been true to scale.
No.
Like for the amount of bodies that fit inside, like the Rhino could not fit 12 Primaris Marines inside of it. Like no way. That's a clown car.
the one
They
sitting in
take their
front
armor
of
off and you stack them like cord of wood.
the one sitting in front of Games Workshop headquarters. If you go look at the Space Marine, you're like, yeah, no way.
Yeah, no.
He can't fit in.
One can't fit in there, let alone 12.
You could stack them like cordwood.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, Land Raider for me, especially the Crusader, and I got super into it during Apocalypse. That was when I started really buying them, because you could buy like 3 3 Vindicators, and like you get a box with like 2 Land Raiders.
Did you ever do a Land Raider Spearhead game that was like
You know what?
multi Land Raiders? Yeah.
Did, and we did an episode. Those Spearhead rules came out in in
5th edition, I believe.
Yeah, and I think they were originally in White Dwarf or something, and people were all upset about why are they doing this. And then Lars and I played a game of Spearhead. It was great.
Yeah.
It was great. It was so much fun. It was so much fun. And I actually brought out a I swear to God, I'm getting old. Some guy that filled out our form to join the forums was like,
I sent that one to you. That's the one. Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah. I was like, I'm sorry, Carl. I had to send this to you.
who are the people on the show? Is one of the questions. It's like, I don't know, the old guy. I'm like, oh, he's not
brutal.
talking about Josh.
No, he's talking about Adon.
That's right.
That's yes.
But the Bane Blade. That was the first
yeah.
time I got to use a Bane Blade, and boy, that thing was a beast on the table.
Always
but
was.
Spearhead was awesome fun. All right. Anyway, that's me.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to interrupt now.
No, fine.
So the Land Raider, I'm wondering if we're talking earlier about the Avatar, and like the 90s Avatar is tiny and has a very large top knot and is kind of funny looking. But for me, this current Land Raider kit, I'm curious genuinely for listeners, wherever you are, I think there's probably a lot of people for whom this kit is 40K. I would be surprised if that is a uniquely you take. It doesn't do that for me, but I mean, I played with the top knot wheel. Yeah. You know, that's the Land Raider that it's not the Land Raider I grew up with, right? Like this is still the new Land Raider to me, which is absurd because it's a 30-year-old model. But but I wonder for how many folks that's true. I think it might be one of those touchstone kind of models that like that silhouette and everything about it. Like it's pretty iconic.
Gameplay wise, I say it's up there. Like lore wise, it doesn't evoke the 40K universe to me per se.
You don't think so?
It does because it's been there for so long, but
it's the only tank I can be like, I know this story about this tank. Yeah. And there's Land Raider stories. I'm like, I know this story about this.
I know Ark and Land. I've read that.
I love the cross-section poster that they had.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yep.
Huh. Anyway, that was, so listeners, if you're out there. Not a lot of
people know this. And the reason you can fit so many Marines is because when you go in the door, they actually pass through the warp and it shrinks them.
It's a TARDIS.
Yes. All right. Moving on. Let's go with Jody.
Okay. I don't know if this makes the cut. This was, I'm just meat fisting this thing in here. I'm going to go a little bit older model. Also, the Soul Grinder is going to be my vehicle of choice. Yeah. I don't even know that they're a vehicle anymore. They were once, so I'm going to lean on that.
It's a demon engine. It's a vehicle.
This is the one and only
demon,
that's existed.
I'll take it.
Yeah. It's the only one. It's shares parts with the Defiler kit. Yeah, and legs, does a much better job than the Defiler kit, which is
completely agree.
Due for an update, and then maybe we'll also get. I'm here for an updated Soul Grinder for days. And for me, it's the cover of the 4th edition Chaos Demon Codex. In the background, this is an Adrian Smith piece of work, and in the background, you have a Soul Grinder back there, and that's when this thing kind of came into being.
That's right,
and it was kind of. I don't know if it's the first, because I mean, there were dreadnoughts, and the OG Chaos Dreadnought was definitely a demon engine, like no doubt about it. But this
super claw,
what's that?
The one with that huge claw that was
it had
twice as long as the box.
Oh
itself.
Yeah. I'm going back before that. The like Cobra.
Oh yeah.
The metal peanut. Anyway,
yep.
This was like a really proper demon engine where you're just like, there is a demon attached to an engine.
Yes, as opposed to an engine that has a demon inside of it. This was part demon, part engine.
Right. Yeah. And definitely shows its age in its assembly. The armor plates, the blades like leave gaps, and that's a pretty fiddly fix to make that.
They also have some issues with sharpness of detail on the filigree on those that you are required to fill in yourself.
Yep. The musculature on the torso of this demon is pretty soft. Like there's torn flesh, but there's also spots where it's the torn flesh and the armor plates that are kind of fused together. I think are ambiguous in a good way. Yes. Like there's spots where it's like it gives you the choice of what's metal, what's flesh, and that's a great thing to do. And over the years, we've seen a number of these. I have mine. Somebody recently just posted on the Facebook group. I say recently, in the last year, that they did a conversion of one to each god with the advent of the new upsized plastic greater demons.
Yeah.
That is a marriage made in heaven to take greater demon bits. And that's what I did. Just took greater demons bits and smashed them onto Soul Grinders. They're still around in the rules. I was thrilled to see that in 10th they still have a demon data card. Like you can play Soul Grinders in your demon army.
I used one in place of the Defiler for my Khorne berserkers, for my world eaters.
Such a better model.
Yeah, I mean, that is, and that's exactly. I was like, look, this is a Defiler. I just use this model.
It was a problem with that. Staple of my demon army back in 5th, 6th edition when I was playing demons all the time. So
Now to the question of and why this one finally got the like. So why this model of all the amazing vehicle models that are out there, and there's some really cool stuff. The Orc Fighter Bomber was a hard.
Oh, that's a good one.
Oh man, those kits are so good, so good.
that was on my.
That was like okay, I'm not going to do it. I can't do 2 orcs. But the Soul Grinder, my why is because I play the Jesus out of this thing. This kit, I have put these down as often as I can. They add something really valuable just tactically to a demon army, which is durability and long range fire. They look great all through 8th. I mean, I fielded these things once I started converting them, any chance I got, they were on the table. So that was actually why ultimately I gave these guys the nod for my favorite vehicle. Was not so much the models amazing, is it a tactical role is filled, and also again a little bit of a historical nod of this like demon engines. And I mean, gosh, if you look at the current lineup of demon engines, the big spider thing and the Hellbrute, the single part Hellbrute is still a gorgeous model. I mean, it's not kitted out wonderfully, but it's a great looking model. The Mauler Fiends are great looking model. And this was the OG. So yeah, for all those reasons, I went with the Soul Grinder. Also, here's the theme.
Take a Soul Grinder, take a box of flagellants, put some super glue in there, shake it up. Chaos.
Magic.
Perfect chaos.
Sorcery.
It would work so well. There's the one shoulder with the gear is kind of janky. Yeah. So just gum it up with tubes.
Yep.
Just fill it with tubes. Also super grimdark. Like this model screams chaos grimdark. Like this is to me is like, what is chaos Space Marine chaos?
Yeah.
This thing is what it looks
The
like.
demon hell forges of like Khorne's lair, like that.
I think this model holds up still.
Surprisingly.
Yeah.
So when I did my conversions, I swapped out on the Tzeentch and Khorne one. I used greater demon heads. For the Slaanesh one, I just left the head on because I was like, nope, it's pretty.
Kinda
it's
looks like
pretty
a horse already.
Yeah, and added a tongue to it so that it would
There you go.
look like a steed or a fiend, ostensibly. But yeah, also a little bit here of putting out in the universe of GW, if you wanna, whenever it is, 3 years from now, when you
Since
finally come back to demons.
Since you canned the Plague Hulk from Forge World.
Since what?
Remember the Forge World? There was the add-on Plague Hulk.
Yeah, I have one.
Do you?
It's because I haven't done my
So good.
Nurgle demon contingent.
That's what you have.
I tracked one down on eBay and I've got one because I was like,
looks so cool.
It's not going to be better. The funny is it will be smaller, like substantially smaller than my other ones. Which I'm
that's
like,
interesting.
It'll be kind of funny, and it's like,
I think it's a great choice. I think it's a choice I didn't see coming, but it makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense.
Thanks.
What about you, Josh?
I went with the opposite of a Soul Grinder, with the Eldar Night Spinner. So this takes everything we
Has
love
soul gems in
about
it.
the Falcon, which was the original of the skimmers. Falcon, and then we had the Wave Serpent, the Fire Prism,
Yeah.
and then the new Fire Prism. But this, for me, really just cleans that same sleek look up really well. We're having the Night Spinner on there. The turrets on top, aesthetically, it keeps it sleek, it keeps it stylish, it makes it look fast, it looks brutal. I love the shape of those guns. They're very reminiscent of the Warp Spider kind of cannons on top of a tank, but also just the shape of the tank. If you look at it at a profile, for me, it's like it's the golden ratio. Like it's perfect.
Good call.
Yeah.
Yeah, while you were talking about it, I was like, man, all those kits, the silhouette of that Falcon chassis is so
iconic.
good. Yeah.
Iconic.
Which, and like, I mean, I guess I'm going with the Eldar theme for models, which is surprise. I love the Eldar aesthetic.
pretty
Like, it's hard
freaking
to go
models.
wrong with. But just watching that kit evolve through that original Falcon base, which came out in 2nd edition, and was actually a pain in the ass to assemble. But as they've updated and expanded and redone things, revisited, and just added on to that, like this one for me is just kind of the it's the most recent chassis of that Falcon platform. But it's just it's a gorgeous
I think
tank.
that platform is for the Eldar, what the Rhino platform is for the Space Marines.
Yeah, 100%.
Of all those choices, my favorite is actually the Wave Serpent. And I haven't assembled any of these in a long time, but I remember the Wave Serpent actually has like an extended compartment because it's a troop carrier. But I think all the profiles look fantastic.
Yep.
And I agree with you too, as you're talking about this profile in general. I'm actually not a fan of the Night Spinner guns, the ones on top. Like for me, they don't do it. The Fire Prism, like the old one was so difficult to work with. It was because it was okay.
It was a mix.
It was
kit.
metal.
It was metal and plastic.
thing.
Yeah.
On top of that, it made it off balance on one side.
Aesthetically, I actually like that one better. Than
You like that better than the new one?
Fire Prism cannon.
I like the long one better.
Me too.
Yeah, but I mean, all of these fundamentally have the same chassis as you just mentioned, and that chassis for me is almost one of the best things about the Eldar, like it visually for me.
Yeah.
As I looked at various armies and what I was going to play, some aspects of the Tau interested me. I'm sure I dodged that bullet big time. Like Jason, who actually ended up doing Tau when we were trying to decide. I think I've told this story before, but like we were all trying to decide, well, what are we going to play? And I was still thinking about it. He's like, well, I'm doing Tau. And I'm like, I was really leaning towards the Tau. And then when he started playing, I'm like, I'm really glad I did not choose this army. Like this, I do not like the way it plays at all. But as I looked at Eldar, I was like, man, I really like their vehicles. Like their vehicles are really cool, but Lars was already playing Eldar. So
as old as those kits are, they don't show it.
Oh no.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, for kits that hold up over a span of time, this chassis, you don't have to redesign this. Do not read it. If you need to make a new mold to...
They updated the kit because the original Falcon did not go together
matching
well.
anymore.
And this was even back in second edition. Like my first Eldar army was in second edition, and that kit back then, when it was a new mold, did not go together that well.
Yeah,
it's the exact same design, but a new mold of that.
Yeah, and those molds tend to wear out after time, and then
and that was 30 years ago.
You do not need to re-envision this.
Correct.
Like just sell more of
aesthetically
this.
Dead on. It's just keep that mold crisp.
And what's really interesting, I mean, just to divert to Eldar talk a little bit for a second, is when we did our show of force about the Eldar, I was so shocked at the original lore for the Eldar and how it was written, and it stayed the same. Like it's like one of those things where I'm like, they threw a dart at a dartboard and they nailed the bullseye 30 years ago, and the dart has just stayed right there. There's no need to move it.
Didn't need to change it.
No.
I mean, there's one we talked just to pull back the curtain a little about who's does the designer on what. Yeah. If it's Eldar, it's Jess Goodwin. Yeah. And I mean, you can see it in that talk about the silhouette and this model's kept up and the whole paths thing. Like if you get the Gothic and the Eldritch sketchbook is you can see where he lays out, there's pathways and each one's kind of focused on it's so good. It's just such a clear vision of that's what this is. And that model is a great embodiment of
so many of
it. Really is some of the best,
so many of those second edition models are still in the line.
Yeah. Unfortunately though,
they still hold up though. I'm excited for the new plastics, don't get me wrong, but they still hold up.
But it is some really top quality science fiction, science/fantasy writing for this race in particular.
Absolutely.
That I think is just phenomenal.
They've managed to go, it's space elves, and it still is interesting and engaging.
Super unique.
Yeah. And that's, back in the day, it was space orcs and space elves and space dwarves. And there's a reason none of that stuck. And yet the Eldar immediately became the Eldar, and it stopped being space elves very quickly.
Yep. You know what? As I look at this model, the Night Spinner,
you're loving the guns now.
It's gonna be one of those things where I'm like, I don't like it, and then as I look at it more, and maybe I get one for Shell's army, which is becoming my army apparently.
Go to the 360 view, look at it profile,
dude. As soon as you said it, I was like, oh my god, you're right. It is Voop.
All right, maybe I'm maybe I.
Now I'm like, there's
I may
an
have
army
converted.
I don't want to play them, but I've always wanted to paint an Eldar army.
There's so much you can do with this particular model, and the way the wings, for lack of a better term, to call they're just such a great flat surface that you could, especially if you're good at freehand, if there's something you wanted to do.
Really I've always wanted to do it Greek style and sandstone and gold. And muted tones. It's up here. I'm
I got a lot of things up there.
I don't want to.
Some of them 40K related too.
This bats dust and cobwebs and some paint schemes.
I think it's a great choice.
Yeah,
I think it's a great choice, and it's growing on me already. Son of a gun. Son of a gun.
That's the most Nelson laugh.
All right, we did vehicle, and then some. We talked a little bit about Eldar. This is a big one. Favorite HQ model. And this is a real tough.
This was the impossible choice.
Hard.
This one was so hard for me. And what's interesting is I see your choices here. I actually went through those too. But I'll go ahead and go first. My favorite is the new Araman model. And
love it.
And I the shocked look on Jody's face.
What?
I struggled between this. I looked at the new Abaddon model, which is fantastic.
Incredible. It really is.
I looked at just the plastic Eldar Farseer which is just such a great, simple model with so much character that you can just do so much with. I looked at Robute Gilliman, which I'm okay on. He's an okay model. I got a huge statue of him over there.
The statue's the way to go.
Yeah.
I looked at the new Lion model, which is
model.
one of
Great
the best
sculpt,
models I think Games Workshop's put out in a long time. But for me, Ahriman, the new one, is such a great model. And here's why. The old one was terrible. The old one was
my
terrible.
favorite character.
I really did not like the old one. And God, I love the Thousand Suns, but I could not. And then the 30K Ahriman came out, and I was like, yes, I'll use the 30K Ahriman instead. And I have like 3 or 4 of them floating around. Yeah. I used piece of him to help Shell's Sorcerer. It was cool. That was the direction I was going to go. And then they came out with this model.
Yep.
And whether you have him on a disc or not on a disc, you
with
have
that
the
disc,
option.
it's amazing.
Yep.
Yeah.
He is so awesome. There is a comic called Damon Fugue, which came out a long time ago. I have the color version of it that they reprinted. Ahriman is in that at one point and towards the end.
That's right.
And the version they had of him really cemented for me, like, oh, this is an awesome Darth Vader-ish bad guy. But so, I mean, look, clearly this is heavily weighed by my personal, approach. And I loved John French's books on Ahriman. I love the character himself, but this model is just so dynamic and so good. And I love his hand that's like summoning some kind of arcane force.
Incredibly iconic.
He has his staff is just awesome. Like everything on this model is so good. It is. I am torn when I play Thousand Suns to not put him in my Thousand Suns list. And that's for multiple reasons. One, because I just don't want to continually just use the same guy over and over again. 2, because if he ever dies, I get really upset. and I
Take it personally.
I tend to lose a lot. That's why he always teleports back up to his battle barge.
You're gonna have your book of grudges. Josh Killarman again.
But every time I put him on the table, I'm always like super excited to see him on the table. It's just such a beautiful model. It's so dynamic, and it was fun to assemble. It is one of the best of the Chaos heroes they have put out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah.
That era of when they were doing the discs, and then that's when I feel like they really got down the kind of dynamic, like magic action.
Yeah.
Like guy, and I don't know if any of them since are as good as Ahriman, but like that, God, just looks so good.
Yeah,
but that whole era of Zine stuff was
they really
prime.
distilled
So
kind of
good.
the essence of magic and sorcery, and
he stands out from the other again, drawing a blank, the other major sorcerers that you can have on discs.
because there's the Cabal of Sorcerer unit, right?
Yeah.
Which those are all great models too.
They're fantastic. You have a lot of ways to convert them, and even that come within the kit, a lot of options. And I've got 4 or 5 of them, but he always stands above them. Like he's just his helmet looks so cool. And I used to be like, this is the goofiest looking thing. And now it's like, this is the coolest.
This is awesome.
He's awesome.
Oh wait, so you didn't like a model and it grew on you, and
I didn't.
and here we are.
I didn't like a model. I didn't like a model. It was terrible.
Yeah.
This version
The new
is
version.
amazing.
Yeah, that's fair.
And I tried to force myself to like the other model because it was Ahriman. I'm like, I have to like this. I'm like, I don't like this. Maybe I can kit bash one. No, he's awesome.
Yep.
So that's me. What about you, Josh?
I went with the Farseer Skyrunner. So this is Farseer on jet bike.
Another Eldar.
Yeah. Which
You know what? This is an amazing choice.
it's incredible.
Just clicked what model it is because
The new bikes.
Skyrunner.
Yeah, no, I got it.
I love the aesthetic of the redesigned jet bikes.
So
this
good.
is to my knowledge, the second version of Eldar Farseer on jet bike. The previous versions being metal.
I thought you had to kit bash the previous version. I didn't realize that.
It's been
You're probably
so long.
you're more right than I am. I guarantee.
I had one in 2nd edition. I had one in 5th edition. I don't remember if I kit bashed them or I'm metal models either way. So I honestly don't remember at this point. But the new model, I love the new design of the jet bikes, the plastic jet bikes. Just
the forward leaning,
subtle change, but how much it went from like your feet are behind you, plugged in, going forward. There's just so much more essence of speed in that pose, in that
you went
design,
from a
in that
Harley
shape.
Davidson,
yeah, exactly,
to a street bike.
It was absolutely, it was
racing bike.
It was a cruiser to now it's a sport bike. We got some speed. Like let's ride the wind, man. So it's an update on the jet bike, but then it's how the Farseer plugs into that, which you already talked about, the plastic Farseer model. It's that model
exactly,
but dynamically posed inside of this jet bike. You get the sweeping robes, you get the arm back with spear or sword. You can go either option with a shining spear or a witch blade. Both look pretty amazing to me, and just absolutely love how that model just kind of marries everything together there. It's got speed, it's got potent psychic, it exudes psychic essence. I don't know, just it does it for me.
You know, even the Warlock on the Skyrunner looks really awesome.
Yeah.
I like Warlocks. I think
I
like their
love
helmets.
the Warlock helmet. Yeah, absolutely.
But that Farseer Skyrunner, that is an excellent choice.
You can absolutely see one in my future Eldar army to be.
The problem is, here's the problem with it.
There's no problem with it.
He's got that vein coming up the top of his head.
Yeah.
Not vein like blood vessel vein,
Right.
but like the wind vein.
That's a spoiler, baby.
But if he's riding that bike that fast and he turns his head to the left,
He's an Eldar. He doesn't have to. He just sees it in his mind.
this is true.
Yeah.
It's true. It actually probably makes it even more agile. He's just like, turn. It's probably part
It's
of
like a shark's dorsal fin.
Yes. That's why you like them.
Because
More-
sharks.
more
Sharkadons of the Eldar.
This also, to bring it full circle with nostalgic love, is the Rocketeer in model form, right? You got that same that shark vein on the helmet. Like it's kind of similar look to that.
This is a great model.
Yeah, I just love everything about it.
I see why you
And
chose
if you
it.
disagree, you're wrong.
With my totally subjective opinions.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Yeah.
The internet said so. Wow, you are really all in Eldar right now.
Yeah, you know.
I mean, they're pretty models.
3 out of 4.
Good thing we're not doing a show Force Eldar right now. I'll tell you what.
Well, just talking
Josh
about
would
our
be in
combat
trouble.
patrol, like I'm already waiting for the combat patrol box to come in stock so I can buy it. Like,
Oh, boy.
that's already happening.
All right.
It's just not going to be painted till I finish the Primaris, but it's happening.
Okay.
All right. Sweet.
Yeah. And then I won't play it because it's broken.
Or you'll figure out a way to break it.
No, it's already broken.
Okay. So unlike some people, I went for a variety. I didn't just stay with the Eldar the whole time.
I tried to go variety. I just landed on chaos.
Honestly, this
assassin,
choice for HQ was so hard. At the end, I legitimately was like, what isn't from something else I've picked? But it's also the most clear representation. My through line is grimdark. Like everything I picked is very grimdark aesthetic. It is, all of them also are particularly evocative of Blanchitsu. Like John Blanche just retired. He's been all over my feed and in my mind a lot. And nobody has had a more iconic impact on, certainly on 40K than him, and arguably in modern sci-fi. I think that for whatever impact GW has had, it's
For sure.
in no small way by his hand.
For sure.
Couldn't agree more. Yep.
So the model that is the most John Blanche inspired thing to exist is Belisarius Call.
You're absolutely right.
I've never built one. I have oogled Collins, was gorgeous.
It was amazing.
I've never seen. Here's a great compliment to this model. Incredibly complicated model. There's a lot going on here.
Yeah.
From what I've heard, not easy to build. Like it is going to test your patience. I don't think I've ever seen one that wasn't awesome looking.
Yeah.
Even with very mediocre paint skills, still, because the design is so good.
Yep.
And from those earliest days of cracking open the Rogue Trader rulebook and seeing Techno Magi and Servitors and Tech Priests and this, like, what is, nothing looked like that, unless you had a sibling who was into some really ahead of its time German death metal of the 80s. Like, it just is so unique in its aesthetic. And to see not only the lore place that this model now takes up, hugely important to what, if we talk lore, this is it. Like, this is in as much, you got Abaddon and Belisarius Call, and that's, they've moved past that to have the Primarchs coming back, but this guy is why.
He was a beast on the table back in 7th and 8th edition too.
Yep.
Yeah.
He was a beast. I don't know how he plays out now.
And force multiplied.
Yep.
But
Did all the things.
all of that aside,
I agree with you completely, and I absolutely hate this model.
You
really?
don't
I
like the
don't
look of
like
it.
this model, but I love how Blanchitsu it is. I love how Grimdark it is. Like, I love it and hate it in equal measure.
say more.
There's a Dark Mechanicus model in the Forge World line. I know we're not including Forge World, but there's like a Dark Mechanicus model that is just so good. It's just so good. I kind of put that on par with this one. I agree with Jody. I think this is a fantastic model.
So I don't use this model because I have no interest in playing AdMech. I really would love to get one of these and Dark Mechanicus it for Iron Warriors, especially.
That'd be cool. That'd be cool.
Yeah, somewhere not size wise, but aesthetically with what has it that you just built.
Oh, the
If only it were in our notes.
Bellicor?
no, the
Lord
Chaos.
Discordant.
Lord Discordant.
Yeah.
Thank
So
God,
a
the young
small
guys here.
scale. Yeah, scroll faster. But a small scale Lord Discordant
It could pull
built off of this somehow. Oh my gosh!
So
yes.
you want a funny story about this guy? So when we did the charity thing for the fires, in Paradise, and by the way, for those people in Hawaii, I'm so sorry. Lahaina is for those people who haven't gone. My wife and I would go every year, sometimes multiple times a year, to Maui, and Lahaina is kind of the tourist town that you go to for dinners and all this, and everything's gone. Like, it's just gone. Like, places my wife and I have loved for years are gone, and I can only imagine how the people who are living there are dealing with it. But just anyway,
yeah.
Going back to Paradise and the fires that we had in California that wiped out that town. We did a charity thing a number of years ago, and there were a bunch of gamers in that area that lost their collections, and losing a 40K collection, especially one that's painted up, is just, it's irreplaceable.
Yeah.
So we did this thing where we took donations from all you, the listeners, and whether it was gift cards for GW or whether it was sending in models, we collected everything into grouping things. We knew what those players played, so we had kind of let everybody know, and we were able to basically replace their armies. Games Workshop had heard we were doing this, and then basically said, we'll give them each an army of their choice, and we'll have the heavy metal team paint a HQ unit for them. And so I happened to be out in Belfast for work at the time, and they had called me and said, hey, can you come over to Warhammer World tomorrow night? And I'm like, I'm working, man. I can't just like pop over tomorrow night. I could be there Friday. And they said, okay, Friday. And so they had on their stream like all the guys painting these models, and they're like, oh, do you want to paint one for somebody? I was like, nobody wants them all. I'm going to paint when you guys are painting these. No, let's have you guys paint them. And so I was like interviewing the guys and talking to them live on screen. The guy that was doing Belisarius Call, because they were doing this in a fast fashion, like they were painting and they'd use like a hairdryer or heat gun, to dry it off, move on to the next piece. He melted Belisarius Call with the heat gun. And he's like, I got to start over. So he had to like go get a whole nother one out and reassemble it. And
Brutal. Oh, man.
Those little spindles.
And he was probably
tiny
halfway through painting it at the point that he melted. I felt so bad for him. Oh, man. I wonder if that stream is still available online. It was on Twitch at the time. It was fun.
Probably is.
But it was a great discussion, and seeing those guys, all those guys. Duncan was there at the time painting one of those.
Peachy was there.
Peachy was there. Peachy
that was
and
so
I
cool to watch when you did that. That was
Peachy and I spent a lot of time chatting. He was a really nice guy. But watching them paint all this stuff and getting to talk to him and find out, well, what do you do here? Oh, I paint the models that are on the boxes. Okay. Do you paint those to special? Do you decide what, it was just a very interesting discussion, but I will never forget. Every time Belisarius Call comes up, I remember him melting Belisarius Call with the heat
never
gun
forget that smell.
and going, oh, I got to go get another one.
Pro tip, don't do that. Yikes.
Yeah. So I think it's a great model. And I can appreciate that why you don't like it.
I absolutely appreciate the model. It's just, I don't love it.
This is one of those models that initially I was like, I don't see it. And then it grew on me, and now I'm like, oh, I love what it represents. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it was all those creepy, crawly, grimdark body horror things from Rogue Trader. Finally, a model that really captures that.
Okay, so let's talk about what didn't make the cut, right? Because it is so hard to, like, regardless of what you choose, somebody's going to say, "Oh, that is not as good as X." Like, that's just the nature of such a diverse line of stuff. So I'll throw out my first one. I already talked about Primaris Kit, so I'm going to leave that one out. The Trigon.
Yep, great.
Trigon was a freaking great model, and it was a Forge World model initially that converted to a plastic model, I think
it's the first one of that trend. And
my finger had hovered over that buy button at Forge World so many times, and then I didn't buy it. And the minute it came out in plastic, I bought it, painted it, and entered it into a painting contest. It was like 24 hours you had to paint and then turn into the GW store, and won some stuff off of painting that.
Nice.
So
sweet.
Yeah, some terrain. So
the Moloch.
The Trigon is just so
makes
good.
me want to play Tyranids every time.
Every time. Bellicor. I talked about Bellicor. I struggled to not include him just because he recently assembled. He's one of my, even his old one was fantastic. Still is.
It's on all three of our like.
Is it?
Yeah.
There you go.
I wasn't gonna put it, and I was like, I'm just gonna put it there, so it's on all three. But I'm like, of course it is.
It's
the model's
beautiful.
insanely.
It's an
cool.
amazing model.
Wraith Knight.
Yep.
All the Wraith units, honestly. I'm like,
Yep.
they're. But that Wraith Knight is awesome, and so is the Wraith Lords are probably my favorite Eldar model.
Yeah.
Wraith
That's such
Lords.
an improvement from the previous version.
Yeah, the current version. Chaplain and Terminator armor for me.
That's
the original one, not the new one.
The old one.
But the old one.
Yep.
Typhus. Typhus was the reason I did Death Guard.
Oh, you like the new Typhus?
The old one.
Oh, look, I got a scythe.
The new one?
A scythe.
Don't like the new one.
Yeah.
The old one, amazing. Now there is a Terminator that is in the pose of the old one that I would, if I were going to do Death Guard again, that would be the one I use. There was a White Dwarf article that featured Typhus. I was like, who is this? Like, I had no idea what it was. Fell in love with the article and the theme. That was it. I bought all the Forge World kits, but Typhus really kicked that off. He's,
I think that's the only Chaos model I still have is Typhus.
He's amazing.
It's a rad model.
Abaddon, I talked about him, the Lion. Yep. When I saw the reveal of the Lion at Adepticon, I was floored. And I don't even play Dark Angels. I was almost, he was a model that was like, maybe I should play Dark Angels. Like, that is so good.
It's an amazing model.
In looking, I was like, this might be the best GW model they've put out. I've since kind of cooled on some of that, but I was really, like, my first impression of that, I was blown away. The Wave Serpent, I had that listed. I didn't, and the Plastic Farseer, I had that listed. I already talked about that. So that was me. Like, there's a ton of other ones that I love, but those were the ones I kind of pared down from. Yeah. What about you, Josh?
Yeah, actually, a lot of overlap here. Wraith Knight, Bellicor, Silent King.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Amazing model. Really cool aesthetic. It's a character and a vehicle in one. So there was a couple times I was like, oh, I want to put that there, but Eldar still win. Drazar, he is the Incubi Dark Eldar.
This model doesn't do it for me.
What? You could just leave.
Hey, you Belisarius, crawl your way out of here.
Yeah, I don't know. I love the Incubi aesthetic. Like, honestly, I didn't put it on this list, but Incubi are 100% on my short list here.
They are awesome. They are.
The favorite
As
unit,
are
I would say Incubi are probably my favorite unit.
What do the snake do? The slith?
Yeah, sure.
Is that what they're called for the Dark Eldar? They had like the serpent
menagerie of critters.
Like
beast
God, I love those.
That's
guys.
a great looking model.
Yep.
But I'm with you on the Incubi.
Grimnar, who's the Votan space wizard.
I almost chose him.
Great model.
I was not super hot on, like, I think their Votan are cool, and I was like, oh, they're kind of cool, you know. And then that guy came out with the beard and the dwarf looking sorcerer guy, and I was just like,
so different that
I was like, oh my God, that guy's amazing.
Yeah.
I did look at that model as I was going through my things too.
Araman, as you called out already, Emperor's Champion,
Classic.
current version and previous. Always
super
love those.
good. The pose is epic.
Phobos Librarian, similar. I like the cloaked wizard dudes. Surprise. So yeah, I appreciate that. Arco-flagellants, which Jody called out already there. Striking Scorpions stand the test of time for me.
Yep.
I'm excited for new ones to come out, but the old ones still love them.
Okay.
Yep, love them. They're just a little bit small. And the old Terminator Chaplain.
The metal
also,
one?
The metal
Oh,
ones.
Chaplain or Captain?
Chaplain with a skull head. Yeah, it's amazing. Amazing sculpt. Like,
Super.
yeah. I don't like so there is more newer Chaplains. I think there is a Terminator one also.
There
with
is.
a skull head. He just looks more cartoony though.
They've given him almost too much flair.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Tell me about your flair.
He
Well, I
looks
have
a
to
little
have
bit
13
softer,
pieces
right?
on.
Like, yeah. 27
But that's
pieces
the minimum.
of flair. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a model that less is more of chaplains in general. I
that
think.
Chaplain, the one you and I are talking about, though, this one is it like hits that, like it threads that needle, perfectly.
Bullseye.
What about you?
I was yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I was like,
I know you're not a Space Marine dude.
That model is. I don't know. I'm going to move on because I don't want to get that much hate mail. Canonus Viridian. This was the original Sisters of Battle limited. They put it out as a model of the cover of the First Sisters Codex.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Very, again, Blanchitsu. It's
The high heel one.
Yeah. It's just
high heels.
so that model is the painting. Like, and much like the Chaos Marine or Chaos Marine and Terminator armor Khorne guy is like that. That's the painting. It's just the painting. It's a killer painting.
Realized as a model. Yeah, for sure.
Morven Vol, Abbess Sanctorum of the Adeptus Sororitas. This is their HQ in one of the battle suits.
Yeah, I have her. She's awesome.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Her pose and everything, like the sword out to the side, is so cool.
That's not. I'm not updating my sisters, Carl. Stop it. Jeez. The Satan Shard of
Did
the
we already
Void
do
Dragon.
show Four Sisters of Battle? I think we did.
We did. I was on.
That's too bad.
They've not.
Well, if we did it now, I'm just saying it might
expensive.
push you over the edge.
Yes, it would. This Shard of the Void Dragon, a model that looks like it's floating.
Yeah.
like
hard to go wrong with that one.
that's so cool. Mortarion. I can't believe none of us have
I did not. And I'll tell you. Keep going, and I'll tell you.
I think
Let's come
Morty's
back.
great.
Hate it.
Vashtor the Arcfane. It looks.
I don't hate that model. No, Vashtor is amazing.
Yeah,
Love
like
that
again,
model.
that techno-organic thing just works for me.
It's creepy looking.
That's what I used to cut up and make my corrupted reaver out of, which beautiful.
It's a great model. Bellicor again. Here's a model that I didn't know existed until I started doing research. The Rogel Dorn Battle Tank.
That's actually a very new edition.
Holy cow, that thing's awesome.
Yeah.
That is what?
I haven't seen one in person yet. So
I haven't.
I'm curious to see because it's large.
Yeah. And awesome.
Yeah.
The new IG Adeptus
Astra
Militarum.
Militarum.
That's them. They look great. It's the same old sames. There's nothing remarkable about them, but yeah, that Rogel Dorn Battle Tank got me going. Here's way out.
A lot of guns on it.
It's a lot of guns.
Yeah.
And straight up looks like it's out of a movie. Like, here's one though that is like really. This is like the highest praise I can give. It is a Space Marine that looks cool and interesting and unique.
For somebody that is critical of Space Marines, that is a high praise.
Castellan Crow, that model
is a good looking one.
It's dynamic. It's captures that like Grey Knight vibe.
Yeah.
Really felt like a hero. Really thought that was neat. Sisters of Battle plastic kit we talked about. The Orc Death Dread. When I was packing my stuff up, I was remembering that the current Orc Death Dread kit is amazing.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Didn't think about this till the very end, and it's not on my list. This one's for you, Brian. The new Berserkers, Khorne Berserkers,
They're super
and
good.
Karn.
Jackals.
I mean,
too.
every version of
Love
Karn.
those jackals.
Yeah, they're neat.
Muscle dudes with swords. Love them.
Yeah, but the new Khorne Berserkers and every version of Karn that's ever been made.
Yes.
So what's interesting here is you've listed Mortarion.
Yeah.
I did not list Mortarion. I'm a big fan of Mortarion, like as a villain. I did not list
Magnus.
Magnus. I didn't list.
Magnus miss.
You think so?
I don't like Magnus's model.
Nor did I.
Armor, no armor.
Nipples.
Armor. You have to have. You have to have the nipple horns because if you're hanging out in the hot tub and the Space Wolves attack, You got to be ready to defend yourself. These were the arguments I was making on a forum once. Somebody was complaining, and I just kept throwing out like the dumbest arguments. And that was one of the arguments I made.
Hey, man, that's solid logic.
That's right. My gold nipple plate.
Nor did I do Angron, right? Like
New Angron model works.
and the new Angron model
good, too.
is really good. Of the demon princes that have come out, and actually I'm not as big a fan of Angron as like a character. I think he's the best of the models. I think I have Magnus. I think he's good.
He's
cool.
fitting. Yeah, he's
fine.
fitting.
I think Mortarion, yeah, he's cool. You know, okay. What I really want to see them do is what's his name from Slash?
Fulgrim. Yeah.
Fulgrim.
Oh, yeah.
They gotta give him a snake
Some kind
body.
of snake
and-
Fulgrim. Oh, yeah.
Like, okay, that's the one that could have made the list for me if but it only exists in my mind, right?
Yeah.
I'm really hoping they do something.
So I'm kind of that way about the Primarch models. Like I full acknowledgement, like
The Loyalist Primarchs.
yeah, like Lionel Johnson it's a great model.
Of the two of them, I think Lionel Johnson is hands
way better,
above.
in my opinion.
Yeah.
Way better. And by the way, I'm
still
halfway
falls
through the
flat for
Lion
me.
book now. It does it.
Yeah. It's
Is that because he's like the epitome of a Space Marine?
that, and it is like, and I've said this before, and I don't want to belabor the thing of just like that silhouette. At some point, it's like McDonald's arches,
I get you. I hear what you're saying.
and he's
I mean,
still
it's,
that.
It's
It
hard
is
to be
a
that wrong, but it's,
beautifully. It's a beautifully rendered model. No,
if
like,
that's
cannot-
what you're into,
Yeah.
that is a great choice.
and I wouldn't say that of the reboot.
I agree with
model.
you.
Yeah.
I
Like
agree
there's
with you.
some genuine there's some problems with that model.
Okay. Well, I don't know about that, but
I don't
I just
the,
don't.
the face is
I
bad.
don't love it.
The face.
Well, that's
is
why
bad.
you put the helmet on. Look, it's a face only an emperor could love.
That's true. That is the truth. Same of
actually agree
Mortarion,
with
but
you.
Mortarion, like that detail level on Mortarion's face, and I'm also skewed by like, and we've all seen them though. There's some Mortarion paint jobs out there that are
Crazy good.
crazy.
Oh yeah.
And I when I think of that model, I can't help but think of the moth wings with eyeballs free-handed into them that look
So good.
textured and like so that's skewing the Mortarion, but it's also just it's a really cool model.
It is a cool model. I just didn't. I think the others.
Yeah,
spoke to me more.
Yeah,
like it more than
we all
Call.
picked our four that, and none of these were it.
There you go.
As good as all of these models are.
Maybe they fit in the next time we do, so we have different categories or something. Who knows?
Well, we could do, what we could do, just to throw it out there, pick a faction and go by faction. Best Eldar model, best, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. This was fun and brutal. Like,
Right?
yeah, doing
Like,
these notes was
Man.
like,
I thought it would be like an easy go to, but
When
it
we
turned
first thought about this too, everything coming to mind were all old fantasy models that have like just been
Stood the test of
that
time.
like the Green Knight I talked about, like that
Oh, that
model
one's-
from back when I was
Yeah.
playing 5th edition fantasy, like and childhood, like that model still stands out to this day.
the
Like,
Brian Nelson Orc Shaman.
There you go. All right.
yes.
No, none of us said a Harlequin.
I almost use Harlequins
I
for
thought
the
of-
banner of the
I
show.
thought about it.
The new Harlequins are freaking awesome. All right. Listen,
Sorry.
listen. All right,
Shadow
we're gonna
Slayer, the
models.
Death
We're gonna
Jester
take we're gonna
special.
take a short break. We're gonna come back and we're gonna close out the show at this point. We'll be right back. All right, and we're back. Thank you so much for joining us on this, what was supposed to be a lighthearted episode.
Oh, it was.
But
There's a lot of fun
caused
banter
me a lot of
here,
angst.
here in the studio. Yeah,
caused me a lot of angst to pick one.
it was hard. That's for sure.
And I still don't think it's right. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. If you asked me in a week, I'd be like, what was I thinking?
it's quite, as you made suggestion, the
I can't
sisters
believe I
of
chose
battle.
Call.
You'll be like, I love call. I'm starting
You know,
to add
I
that
didn't
card.
initially like it, but it really grew on me.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, listen, on that note, whatever you're listening to us on, please leave us a review. We very much appreciate that. We have a great Facebook community, which is still going strong. And again, I'll add, we will start a thread as this releases. please just post in that thread your favorite models rather than start new threads so we can keep it a little bit under control. But we do want to see and hear what your thoughts are on how wrong we are.
Yeah.
And I should mention, you please look for links to our Patreon, which will be on the Facebook page, on the Facebook group, in the show notes here. We really could use your support. Josh and I are trying new things, obviously with the video. There's some pieces of equipment we'd love to do. We're also both out of work and really focusing on this at the moment as something to help stem the. Hey, listen, we're loving it.
Yeah. When you send me pictures, I will love it with you.
I hung out by the pool the other day. It was great.
Well, yeah, I was in meetings when you guys were like, look, Adeptus Titanicus.
Oh, that's right. So, no, but in all seriousness, there's going to be a lot of great content on there, including, our live play of Dark Heresy, which we're going to be involved in. And you're going to hear John French, who's one of the authors who wrote that it's a series of adventures that we're going through. What his original thoughts and Alan Bly's original thoughts were on how that should work out, and then we'll see how it actually works
really
out.
Excited to hear that comparison.
Yeah, me too. So
stupid Americans.
John would never say that. John would never. He'd think it, but he wouldn't say it. I love John. He's the greatest. All right. Well, listen, anything you guys want to add?
The one thing I'll call out, speaking of videos, is episodes like this that we're referencing a ton of models and things like that. Like, definitely, if you got the chance, check out the YouTube video, because every model we talk about is going to be up on the screen here.
Yeah,
like,
we're just
you're going to have that visual reference to go with the audio commentary. Check it out. Give it a subscribe if you like it.
And again, last weekend we sat down and we talked over a long period of time about what do we want to do, and we're going to start doing some more short form content for the YouTube channel that won't be available in the audio.
Yeah, and
it's worth checking out.
Right. There'll be a lot more coming that way that is not episodes specific. So.
Yeah. The key is we don't want to do things other people are already doing.
Right.
Like we're just the objective of the show has been and will always be, how do we make you feel like a part of our gaming group? We have a great group of people involved in the hobby that approach it from all different angles. Some don't like Space Marines, and they're wrong. And others, listen, I don't like Space Marines. I'm not playing, but I can appreciate them artistically. The Blood Angels are artistic. Anyway, I'm going off topic.
Wow, really bad legs here. Like Belisarius' call.
The point is, the whole point of our video channel will also be to make you feel like a part of our group. That's really our objective. So we're open to ideas too. If you have any feedback, please let us know. You can write us at carl@theindependentcharacters.com. There's no A in independent. You'd be surprised.
No, I wouldn't.
Or josh@theindependentcharacters.com.
But there's an A in that independent.
Get out.
All right, Josh is not getting any email. I'm sorry it's such a long.
Can it be Jody at the Independent, but it goes to Josh?
You know what? I can make that happen.
That is full circle.
Anyway, Josh
You
or
haven't
Carl.
called me Jody in a long time.
He worked on it, man.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Do you feel sad?
No.
You guys don't call me
maybe
CJ.
a little bit.
Are we done yet?
All right, we're done. So listen, this is Carl.
This is Josh.
This is Jody.
And we're coming to you from the Astronomicon, where plastic glue or super glue, you're never wrong.
Or where if you disagree with me, you are wrong.
Look, we're just a podcast about models that happens to also play games.
There you go. Thank you so much for joining us, Jody. I appreciate
Always love
it.
hanging out.
And we're looking forward to hearing from you guys and seeing you next time. This episode of The Independent Characters is protected by the Creative Commons license. If you have further questions as to its use, you can find information on the front page at theindependentcharacters.com.